Then our military stands there, and then I go home. That's my terms.
I mean, that means another war. Do you want another war?
Armenia has never started war against Azerbaijan. It was always Azerbaijan starting war. Azerbaijan every single day on news says that there are high chances that they will start attack against Armenia.
İstəsə daha asan həll edəcək. İstəməsə də zorla həll edəcək.
This is Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, demanding that Armenia give his country a free road corridor through its territory. If it doesn't, he says he will take it by force. In response, Nina and other Armenian civilians are taking up military training run by volunteer organizations. Would it ever be possible for Azat, Nina, and the other 100,000 Karabakh refugees to go home without another war? I've been to Armenia many times in the last decade, and now I have a feeling that the number of people who believe the cycle of violence should stop is greater than ever. Thanks for listening. Assignment was presented by me, Grigor Atanasian, and produced by Tim Hugh.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is Thursday morning. It is April 25th, and you're listening to CBC's Information Radio. This is the morning show. We're on until 8:37 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you so much for joining us. It's 3 minutes, as mentioned, to 6 a.m. World Report, national and international news is coming up. And today's going to be the warmest day we've had of the week in Winnipeg, at least a high of 22 degrees on the way and lots of sunshine. Good morning to our team this morning. Brad Lilly's behind the glass. Abby Adeyemi also there, our technical producer, and Abby will cover weather on the air. So we'll talk to him shortly. In addition, Corey Funk is here this morning. Corey directs the program and will be covering the commute. Heather Wells is in also. We have a serious and busy news day ahead. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, calls today for a trustee in the Mountain View School Division in Western Manitoba to step down. Paul Coffey is one of 9 school board trustees in that division. And on Monday, his presentation at the board meeting, he claimed certain inclusion and reconciliation initiatives caused division. The province says it is investigating what he said. We're going to hear more about what happened at that meeting. And jury selection is set to begin today in a Winnipeg courtroom in the case of an alleged serial killer. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 women in 2022, Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Marin, and a 4th victim known as Buffalo Woman. We'll hear more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
I mentioned Winnipeg 22 today. Brandon, mix of sun and cloud, also a high of 22. Going to be a little windier there, though. Winds will be actually in both places, in Winnipeg, too. Winds will be south 40 to 60. So it's going to be windy in Brandon and Dauphin and Winnipeg. And in Thompson, finally mainly cloudy, a 30% chance of showers late this afternoon, and your high up in Thompson is going to be 12 degrees. Well, we will have both of those stories Heather mentioned featured on our program in the second hour. We're going to have some conversations about jury selection, for example, around the Skibicki trial, so stay tuned for that. In the first hour of the show, we're going to hear from a Winnipeg musician who covered a tragically hip song, and the band took notice, so we'll hear about that. Plus, maybe you're brushing your teeth right now listening, or maybe you're getting ready to. If not, you might want to wait till you hear our story about the best way to do it properly. Optimal toothbrushing. When's the last time you thought about that? So stay tuned. That's all still ahead.
On Q.
I'm Macy Rose sitting in for Tom Power. Saturday Night Live legend Maya Rudolph will tell you about the second season of her series Loot, why she's so interested in the lives of the mega rich, and she'll look back on some of her biggest comedy moments.
Wilson Phillips, we listened to Hold On probably 10,000 times when I got my driver's license.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. Something big is coming to Canada's automotive industry, and for days we've had hints it's coming from Honda in the form of a new electric vehicle plant. We will finally learn the full details later this morning. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Ontario Premier Doug Ford will be there for the announcement. And Janice McGregor will be following closely from our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, when we talk about a new deal with Honda, how big is big?
One of the reasons you're going to hear politicians reaching for all the superlatives today, Marcia, is that this isn't just about one facility. Not only is Honda revealing a major expansion of its assembly plant in Alliston, but it's also going to manufacture its electric vehicle batteries in Canada and invest in the components for those batteries. And that's why when it all adds up and the bottom line's revealed, we're expecting this to be the biggest play yet in Canada. Ultimately, this Honda investment will create jobs in multiple locations. We know they're all in Ontario. Quebec's minister revealed earlier this week his government had been outbid. And it took incentives from both the federal and provincial governments to land it. And that's the second big number we've yet to nail down. Politicians a bit cagey when previous EV deals were announced, not always fully transparent about everything taxpayers had to kick in, citing corporate competitiveness concerns. But unlike the ongoing production subsidies offered to land Canada's first two battery plants in Windsor and St. Thomas, the sweetener for Honda this time is taking the form of specially designed tax credits. Ontario's Economic Development Minister Vic Fedeli explained they're not simply handing over a giant novelty check for $1 billion.
No money is distributed to any company until they've met their hiring goals and their construction goals. So if they haven't started, there's no money issued whatsoever.
But what about the return on this investment for taxpayers? Not everyone's convinced, Janice.
Oh, it takes a lot of money to compete globally. And we've seen skepticism from union leaders in Windsor, for example, when foreign workers from the Korean parent company were brought in there to do jobs they believed had been promised to Canadians. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said yesterday, if we're shelling out big for Honda, there'd better be strings attached.
Public dollars should be tied to jobs and investments that benefit Canadians. It should not be that we just give a blank check to a company and say, we hope that you're going to hire Canadians. We hope that this is going to be beneficial.
Federal Conservatives, too, have amplified this kind of skepticism about these deals, a departure from their provincial cousins at Queen's Park, where Doug Ford's government is all in.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. In New York, we love Trump! We love Trump! Donald Trump greeted by a crowd of supporters outside a Manhattan courthouse. Trump arrived early this morning for the hush money trial. His legal team has another big day in Washington. Some of that team will be in D.C. at the Supreme Court for another significant trial. Richard Madden is covering the story for us. And Richard, what is happening in Washington?
Yeah, this is perhaps the most consequential one because just a few hours from now, the Supreme Court will begin oral arguments on Donald Trump's claims that he's immune from criminal charges while he was president. This is an appeal connected to his federal charges of trying to overturn the 2020 election in his final days in office. Now, Trump is the only former president to ever be charged with a crime, but he's long argued all presidents must be shielded from prosecution. Special counsel Jack Smith has argued no one is above the law, including the president, and federal lawyers will try to persuade the judges, 3 who were appointed by Trump himself, that Trump wasn't acting as president when he tried to overturn Joe Biden's victory on January 6th. So this all sets up another unprecedented moment for the High Court. Here is University of Pennsylvania law professor Kate Shaw.
The fact that they took the case, to my mind, sends a signal that they are at least considering seriously this argument. And so there is at least a non-zero chance that some number of justices might sign on to this, I think, quite extraordinary argument that Trump is making.
So another big factor is the timing of this ruling. The longer the court takes could affect the start date of the trial and whether it would happen before or after November's election.
So what are the implications of a court ruling?
Yeah, well, Trump will likely argue if the trial begins before the election, during the campaign, it would be election interference. Prosecutors would likely argue for a speedier trial. But if Trump wins, that basically would end this whole case. The January 6th charge is essentially tossed out. But if he loses, the case continues. So the stakes are high and their decision consequential.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Also in D.C., representatives from more than 40 countries are meeting just ahead of the Summer Olympic Games in Paris. They are looking at how the World Anti-Doping Agency dealt with China, as well as several of its athletes who tested positive ahead of the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Sarah Levitt has more.
Athletes deserve answers and transparency.
Rob Keeler once worked at the World Anti-Doping Agency. He says the latest controversy has placed the upcoming Paris Olympics under a cloud of suspicion. Before the 2020 Tokyo Games, 23 Chinese swimmers reportedly tested positive for TMZ, a heart medication that gives an energy boost. Chinese authorities called it an accidental contamination. WADA never intervened and did not publicly report the results. The agency defended itself earlier this week. Ross Wenzel is general counsel.
Some of the comments that have been made, which suggested a cover-up of doping cases for political reasons, couldn't be further from the truth.
WADA will likely face more scrutiny today and tomorrow at the America's Sports Council Summit being held in Washington. And many critics are calling for an independent investigation. People like Keeler, who is now the Director General of Global Athlete, an international athlete-led organization.
Now, WADA needs to cooperate. WADA needs to provide all information to show whether they were right or wrong in the way they acted.
WADA President Vitor Banca has said he'll answer any questions at the summit in an effort to clear WADA's name before the Paris Games begin in July. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Jury selection starts today for the trial of a Winnipeg man accused of killing 4 women. The partial remains of Rebecca Contois were found in a garbage bin and at a city-run landfill in 2022. Police say they believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are at a different landfill outside Winnipeg. A 4th woman has not been found. Indigenous leaders have named her Buffalo Woman. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. His trial is scheduled to start next week. A Toronto area woman has just learned she may not be Canadian. She's been in the country nearly her entire life. As Olivia Bowden reports, she got a letter from Immigration Canada that is taking months to sort out.
I was totally shocked.
Ariel Townsend says she never thought to question her citizenship. She was just a few months old when she came to Canada from Jamaica. But everything changed for the 32-year-old last September. Immigration Canada said her citizenship could be canceled.
I thought that there would be roadblocks to me becoming who I wanted to be in this country and making myself successful, but I never thought that that roadblock would be literally revoking my citizenship.
Townsend was born in Jamaica in the 90s. Her mother says she had just become a Canadian a few months before the birth, but the government now says its records show her mother was not a Canadian until after. Daniel Kingwell is a lawyer for Townsend.
We're asking the government to recognize if a mistake was made, it wasn't her fault, it wasn't her mother's fault. She should either be able to retain her citizenship or they should give her citizenship.
Kingwell says they filed the proper documents with the government 5 months ago and have not heard back. In the meantime, Townsend cannot leave the country until this is resolved. She says she feels helpless.
I'm the one responsible for fixing the problem that I did not even create for myself. I don't know how they expect me to prove something that I have no ability to prove.
Immigration Canada told CBC they do not comment on individual cases due to privacy legislation. Olivia Bowden, CBC News, Toronto.
What happens when you combine this
with 10 fresh flavors every day? Everyone can have their way. Yeah! You've always got time for Timbits.
With this?
Welcome to the Rock. If you come from away, you probably understand.
A Tim Hortons musical, of course. No, for real, it is happening. To mark its 60th anniversary, the donut chain is launching a musical this summer in Toronto. It's called The Last Timbit, and it's based on a bad snowstorm back in 2010. It was so bad, drivers near Sarnia, Ontario, had to wait out the weather at a local Tim Hortons. The show is expected to be a high-end production. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Wildest weather that you've ever heard of, where everyone is nicer, but it's never nice above.
But 6 degrees in Winnipeg, heading for a high of 22. Abby will talk more about that in a moment. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC 89.3. Well, this hour on the show. You doing that right now? Brushing your teeth? Are you doing it the right way? When's the last time you thought about the optimal way to brush your teeth? We actually have an item coming up about that. Stay tuned. In addition, this hour on the program, Canada has previously set ambitious targets for transitioning to electric vehicles, but the road to electrification is challenging. We're going to talk to a researcher who studies the automotive industry about what is expected today. As you may have heard on a World Report, it's widely expected Honda will make an announcement they'll manufacture EVs in this country. So we'll have a conversation in the context of that developing news. Stay with us. Speaking of developing news, Heather Wells is in with our local headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a mother in the Mountain View School Division is calling on a school board trustee to step down after comments he made at a board meeting on Monday. Paul Coffey's accused of sharing hateful opinions and misinformation about inclusion policies and residential schools. Jerry Ann Thompson is an Indigenous mother whose 2 children are in the Parkland Area Division. She says she was shocked by what she heard. So we'll hear more about that. Jury selection starts today for the trial of a Winnipeg man accused of killing 4 women. The partial remains of Rebecca Contois were found in a garbage bin and at a city-run landfill in 2022. Police say they believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Marin are at a different landfill outside Winnipeg. A 4th woman, known as Buffalo Woman, has not been found. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
I almost did it this morning, Heather Wells.
What?
Switching gears here, I almost released the toes. Put on some flip-flops. I thought about it for a sec.
You need to.
Have you done
Get
it yet?
wild.
Have you worn sandals yet this year?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, of course. Why am I asking you this?
And in fact, my feet have a very odd tan line from the walking shoes I have. But yeah, sandals are where it's at. Got to get them out.
I think I have an odd tan line on the back of my neck from yesterday afternoon. It was sure beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Today is going to be even warmer. So here is Abby with our forecast. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcy. How are you doing today?
I'm well. I love that you're wearing this beautiful rich blue sweatshirt. It looks like what the sky might be like today.
Yeah, I'm just trying to match it with, when the sunshine comes out later in the day and in the afternoon on my way home. I just want this beautiful blend of, the sunshine bouncing on the blue.
Yeah, well, you're going to get it. As I mentioned a little bit here, Abby, we have a warm day ahead.
Yeah, warm day ahead. And talking about blue, we have clear skies right now in the downtown. It's currently 6 degrees, setting the stage for a beautiful day ahead. Now, as we delve into the day, you should expect a delightful mix of sun and clouds. Now, the morning will be dominated by sunshine, but then later we're going to see that, sun and clouds mixing together, creating for a perfect backdrop for outdoor activities. So if you're one of those that would want to go take some photos outside, I guess today will just be that day for you. However, as we approach the noon period, we're going to see that a transition added to that mix of sun and cloud, like some winds that will be coming. It's going to be windy from the noon period, but we will be peaking at a comfortable 22 degrees today. And tonight, a few clouds are going to definitely roll in and gradually increasing as we near the midnight period. And here is a kicker for tonight. I know we don't want to hear about that, but there is a high chance of showers making an appearance overnight, just to set the stage for how tomorrow morning will start. So if you have plans for tonight, you might just want to get prepared, because you'll be seeing some showers. Brandon is currently at 8 degrees. Thompson is at -2. Churchill at -13. Dauphin is at 13, actually. Winnipeg, we're starting off with clear skies and sunshines today, and we're heading to of 22.
Oh, I like that. You're going operatic this morning. Corey, follow that.
I
knew it.
Well, that's the sound we were making yesterday when we saw the street cleaners.
Oh, yeah, it's
true. It was very exciting.
That's the traffic
except for there was one van that didn't move on our street, like almost right in front of our house. So it was so unsatisfying, because it's actually cool to watch. There's a lot of little machines that come by and do their things. They also come and dust off the front boulevard lawns.
It's like missing a spot when you're vacuuming, or missing a spot when you're mowing the lawn, because then everything else is nice, and then the van moves and you got the little patch.
So there'd be this nice little patch. It was like, it was very frustrating. frustrating. But anyways, yes. Otherwise, there really isn't any issues out there right now that I've heard of. But if you're out there, you're walking, biking, you want to complain about that one van on your street that doesn't move for street cleaners, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I understand. 204-788-3093.
Well, Tragically Hip fans might recognize this song.
So white privilege is the unquestioned and
Oh, we're just taking a moment here. We're obviously having a challenge just with the right piece of tape coming in. I am talking about Long Time Running. That is a cover, that is a Tragically Hip song that you might know. And right now, that song is making news in Manitoba. And it's making news in Manitoba because a cover has been done of that hip song by Winnipeg musician Nick Dyson. First, let's have a listen to the song we're talking about.
Mother tell you things long ago. Who you talking to? She telling you it's a grave mistake, and I'm wide awake.
So that is, in fact, the cover. It's early, folks. You're going to bear with us. That is, in fact, the cover of the Tragically Hip's Long Time Running by Winnipeg musician Nick Dyson. He posted a video of himself singing the song earlier this week, and that's what we're listening to. But the band took notice. How cool is that? They're reposting it on the Instagram and TikTok pages, and now a lot of Tragically Hip fans are also Nick Dyson fans. And Nick Dyson spoke about it with Faith Fundell on Up to Speed yesterday.
I was beside myself. I mean, to be recognized, to be seen by them it's beyond my comprehension. It's amazing.
And it's actually more than just that, because when you sang this song, you were also seeking a recognition of something else. What was that something else?
That song means a lot to a lot of people, and at the beginning of the video, I put a little blurb that said that I sang that song at my dad's celebration of life at his funeral, and I think that's why a lot of hip fans took notice of the cover as being more than a cover, because I had so many comments and things saying, my grandma or my dad or my sister was also touched by glioblastoma, and we played this song at their funeral, and just people, just an outpouring of people sharing their connection to that song, and it's a really beautiful thing.
As you were recording that song and singing it, what was going through your mind? What were you thinking about?
When I did the cover, I was thinking about my dad, of course. Him and I were really lucky to see the last Winnipeg show here in 2017, and I can't listen to the hip without thinking of him. It's one of the first bands that I remember hearing as a kid. I grew up on them. They were my musical introduction, and so I can't help but think about my dad. And yeah, it's a very powerful song.
Gord Downey and your dad went through something similar.
Yeah. They both had glioblastoma cancer, brain cancer, and so when I found that out, I took a lot of comfort in the Hips music, going through watching him pass away, and after him passing away, I found a lot of comfort in the community that has stayed around the Hip since Gord's passing.
Your dad has also become an inspiration for your own music as well, right? You have a song coming out called "You Kept Me Crying." It's inspired by lyrics that your father wrote. I want to play a bit of it. Let's take a listen.
Sure.
Seclusion with time allows expansion of the mind, and even though it hurts like hell to find out what you want isn't what you need.
That's a tune called "You Kept Me Crying." Nick, when you think about music, how has music helped you connect with your dad?
That's a loaded question. He taught me everything I know about music. He raised me on music, and when I first started recording music, he was the guy at the controls. I recorded my first 3 albums with him before he passed, and also like that song in particular. Does have lyrics that he wrote. He wasn't much of a lyricist or a musician, but when he was 23 in 1983, he gave it a shot and he wrote some lyrics. And near the end of his life, he found the lyrics and he just put them on my bedroom dresser one day, and it took me until this summer to go through them, and I did, and that's the song that came out of it.
How do you reconcile all of this? Because there is grief in your cover, but also a lot of joy, especially with the hip sharing it. How do you reconcile all those things together?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a tricky thing. Grief is ever present. I don't think it ever goes away, but you learn how to not only cope with it, but yeah, find that joy, and the hip are a huge piece of that joy for me. Even if singing songs like "Long Time Running" might hurt a little bit, there's still that, I don't know, silver lining, as it were. But it's really tough.
Does your mother tell you things? Who you talking to? She telling you it's a grave mistake, and I'm wide awake, driving's rained out, weatherman with fingers the sky. He pokes it out, he pulls it in, you still don't know what it is. It's the same mistake. It's been a long time running. It's been a long time coming. It's well worth the wait. Don't go anywhere, just on trips. We haven't seen a thing, we still don't know what it is. It's a safe mistake. It's been a long time running.
That's Nick Dyson's cover of the Hips, "Long Time Runnin'." Nick is a musician here in Winnipeg. You heard part of his conversation with CBC's Faith Fundal yesterday on Up to Speed. If you want to hear the whole thing, by the way, and more of Nick's music, you can check it all out on the CBC Listen app. That's a great cover. It's a great cover. It is 6:25 a.m. on 89.3. I'm Marcy Marcusa with the team here at Information Radio. Brad and Abby and Corey behind the glass this morning. Mainly clear, 6 degrees in the city of Winnipeg. Heather Wells in our news center with your next local cast coming up in 5 minutes. Right now, let's talk about what made a bit of news in the budget. The rebate for new and used electric vehicles in Manitoba came to be. Global electric vehicle sales are expected to surge in the coming decade. And according to multiple sources today, as you might have heard on World Report, Japanese automaker Honda is set to announce a multi-billion-dollar plan that involves building EVs and the batteries that power them in Canada, in Alliston, Ontario. And that's where the company already builds gas-powered models. To talk about it, Francis Sims is with us, Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology at Humber College. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us. So what do we know so far about this potential new deal that we're all expecting to be announced officially today?
Yeah, well, like you said, it's a multi-billion-dollar deal. We expect it to be up to $15 billion to build EV batteries in Alliston, Ontario, which is about 45 minutes from Toronto, assemble EVs there. Currently, what they do at that Honda facility is Honda Civics and Honda CR-Vs, which many Canadians across the country, purchase as an affordable vehicle. And then the third part is that they're going to eventually build the components that go into the batteries, probably somewhere else in Ontario, maybe somewhere else in Canada. So this is a big deal for Canada, and it goes towards the target, the 2035 target of 100% of EVs or vehicles being sold in Canada that are zero-emission vehicles. It's actually the third plant that's been announced to be built in Ontario around EV batteries. Stellantis is building a plant in Windsor, Ontario, and Volkswagen is building a plant in St. Thomas. Doug Ford said that this project is going to be at least 400 football fields large in size. So it's a big facility, and I think it's a huge investment for Honda into Canada.
Is it a sign, though, that the federal budget, the EV supply chain investment tax credit is part of what's enticing these companies to do business here?
Yeah, I think that was the thing that probably sealed the deal. In addition to some background stuff, in 2023, the federal government introduced a 30% clean manufacturing incentive tax credit that these organizations would already use to do things like build EV batteries or things related to sustainable energy production. But I think that probably wasn't enough. And I would suspect that Honda had been negotiating and other manufacturers for this additional top-up of 10%, because it matches 100% basically the announcement that's going to happen today. The tax credit says you get 10% back if you're doing two of the three things: building electric vehicles, building electric vehicle batteries, or building the materials that go into those batteries. All those three things we expect to be part of the announcement by Honda today.
So the companies are that's all promising, but then we need infrastructure, and then we need people to buy the vehicles. So I mentioned in Manitoba, we just had the rebates go through up to $4,000 for an EV on a credit if you buy a new one. A lot of people are saying it's not enough. How important is it?
Enough. Yeah, I think there's 4 pillars, right? I know we only have a little time left, but production and capacity, which helps with this, cost, the sustainable grid, right? Is that, can you actually charge your car, and do people know how to fix those cars? From a cost perspective, $73,000 is what the average EV cost for a new vehicle is in Canada. That is huge. Most people can't afford that. And part of it is because the EVs that are out there are primarily Teslas, right? So you imagine that if Honda starts to build more affordable EVs in Ontario, that's going to benefit all Canadians. But that's a huge barrier for Canadians. 2035, 100% of all new cars sold in Canada are supposed to be EVs. But right now, last year, only 10% of the cars purchased by Canadians were EVs, compared to China. China's 40%. And so you say, okay, what's going on there? Well, it's cost. In China, you can buy an EV for 10 or 20 grand, right? In Canada, 73 grand. Nobody can buy that. The rebates help, right? Maybe the rebates in total, with you guys are lucky to have a rebate in Manitoba. We don't have one in Ontario. So there's the $5,000 federal rebate, and then there's the additional top-up that you have in Manitoba, which helps. But the difference in price is sometimes like 20 grand between an EV and a gas-powered car. So people have less money in their pocket due to inflation. How do they go into a dealership and decide they're going to put 20 grand more up front now thinking that it'll save the money down the road. Well, most people can't do that.
Yeah.
Especially when the cost is $70,000.
Well, we'll await this announcement in more details today, and we have done some detailed stories about the lack of infrastructure in the country as well, which is a big piece. But thank you so much, Francis, for the conversation and for teeing up what we're expecting in the news later.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's Francis Sims, an Associate Dean of Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology at Humber College. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 6 degrees. And if you liked yesterday, you'll be happy to hear we're still warm. 22 is our high this afternoon. Mix of sun and clouds, and it is going to get windy. South 40 gusting to 60 later this morning. A mother in Mountain View School Division is calling on a school board trustee to step down over comments made at a board meeting on Monday. Paul Coffey is accused of sharing hateful opinions and misinformation about inclusion policies and residential schools. In a presentation, he expressed doubt over the number of Indigenous people who attended those schools. Jerry Ann Thompson is an Indigenous mother whose 2 children are in the Parkland Area Division.
It worries me because I am very active in my daughter's school right now, and I see the progress that's being made. They're more proud of their culture, their history, because it's more accepted in the schools now.
Thompson says she wants Coffey to resign. CBC News reached out to Coffey for comment, but he has not responded. Meanwhile, a group called the Parkland Human Rights Alliance has sent a letter to Manitoba's education minister asking him to do whatever he can to remove Coffey from the school board. Education Minister Nello Altomare says the province is launching a governance review of the board.
We're concerned about the presentation, and we're also concerned that the presentation was even allowed to proceed at the board meeting.
Altomare says once that review is completed, his department will then decide what to do. He says schools have to be inclusive, safe spaces, and he says they have to continue doing the important work of reconciliation. Jury selection is set to begin today in a Winnipeg courtroom in the case of an alleged serial killer. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 women in 2022. The partial remains of Rebecca Contois were recovered from a garbage bin and the Brady Road landfill. Police believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Marin are in a different landfill north of Winnipeg, and the location of the 4th victim, known as Buffalo Woman, is unknown. After jury selection, Skibicki's trial is scheduled to begin on Monday and continue until June. Emergency crews are battling a significant fire in BC's interior that has closed a highway and prompted a tactical evacuation. The BC Wildfire Service says the out-of-control wildfire is burning in the Peace River Regional District and the district of Chetwynd. It is one of 160 wildfires currently burning in BC and Alberta, signifying an early and alarming start to this year's wildfire season. In New York, Donald Trump is greeted by a crowd of supporters just this hour outside a Manhattan courthouse. Trump arrived early this morning to attend his ongoing hush money trial. His legal team has another big day cut out for them. Some of that will be in Washington, D.C. at the Supreme Court for another significant trial. Trump's constitutional argument is going before the Supreme Court. It is Trump's claim that as a former president, he has immunity from criminal prosecution. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A 17-year-old with autism disorder says he has found purpose and passion in the kitchen as part of Marymount's Student Work Education Experience program. Marymount is a youth and family social services organization. Drew Blaine is learning all the skills required to be a chef.
It's like the cutting and putting stuff out, organizing. It's really a lot more fun if you actually have fun with it. I personally just really like the feeling of using the knife.
Blaine balances schoolwork with 2 weekly morning shifts in the kitchen. And with the help of his teachers and a Marymount scholarship, he has been accepted in the Red River College Indigenous Culinary course. His dream is to become a chef and maybe own a restaurant one day. You can read more about that story and other news from Manitoba. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Nice. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
All right, let's get into our regional forecast now with the man in blue, Abby Adiami.
Yeah, blue sky outside. It's 6 degrees here in Winnipeg under clear skies. Promising to be a beautiful day ahead. Now, today you should get ready for some sunshine to start your Thursday, but keep an eye out for the clouds and the windy conditions that you will be getting. Despite that, temperatures will definitely stay warm and we will be reaching a high of 22 degrees today. Heading out to Brandon, it is currently 7 degrees with partly cloudy skies. Expect a mix of sun and cloud along with some winds from the south and a high of 22. Moving to Thompson, it's currently -2 with partly cloudy conditions. Today will be mainly cloudy with a chance of showers later in the afternoon and the highs will be reaching around 12 degrees. In Churchill, it's chilly at -13 with mostly cloudy skies. Expect a mainly cloudy day with southern winds with temperatures around 0. Now, down in Dauphin, it's comfortable at 14 degrees with clear skies. Now, today, for folks in Dauphin, expect a mix of sun and clouds with southern winds also reaching a high of 22. In Gimli, you are at 1. It's clear. Steinbach is at 4 degrees with mainly clear skies also. Both regions will be seeing a mix of sun and clouds. And then Gimli is going to be getting to a high of 19 and Steinbach is going to be getting to a high of 23. And lastly, in Maurice, it's 5 degrees with partly cloudy skies. The Pembina Valley region can expect mainly sunny weather with southern winds coming with that and a high of 23. For Winnipeg today, we're heading to a high of 22.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, a little quiet out there?
A little quiet out there, which is A-okay with me. But if it's not quiet where you are, if you see them going on, give me a call on CBC Commuter Line, whether you're walking, biking, driving. Would love to hear from you. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It is 6:37 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. or on the CBC Listen app. And joining us via Zoom now is Crystalie Ramlichan. She's here with our business news as she is daily. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So why don't we start with the Canadian dollar and whether or not a weak Canadian dollar compared to the U.S. dollar could derail the Bank of Canada when it comes to interest rates cuts.
Yeah, you're right. So the U.S. economy is growing much faster than ours, and that's because many homeowners here are renewing their mortgages at higher rates, and that's affecting spending elsewhere. We're seeing this. Statistics Canada just reported that retail spending dropped in February. And meanwhile, in the U.S., many homeowners have 30-year fixed mortgages, so they're not feeling interest rate hikes the same way we are. So a new report from Royal Bank of Canada actually says the difference between our economies is historic right now, and that the gap hasn't been this big since 1965, looking at the records that we have. So RBC says Canada will probably cut interest rates faster and by more. And, you know, there's more urgency here because the economy isn't doing as well. And there's been more progress on inflation here. But this could weaken the loonie, raising the cost of imports. But the report says that likely won't feed into greater inflation. So the Bank of Canada shouldn't be dissuaded from cutting rates. Here is economist Claire Than, who authored the report.
Upside risks that we could see is through, weaker currency. Imported goods obviously are going to become a bit more expensive, but historically has not really moved the needle in terms of domestic inflation. We've seen very little evidence of it. Core inflation has been pretty steady around 2%, regardless of huge swings in sort of the CAD USD.
And she says, by contrast, the U.S. Federal Reserve does not appear to be in a rush to cut rates.
Let's go to another story. A former SNC-Lavalin executive has been sentenced to a prison term. What are the details here?
Yeah, that's right. So Normand Morin has been sentenced to 3.5 years in prison in connection with a bribery scheme for a bridge repair contract in Montreal, the RCMP say. He was once a high-ranking vice president at the engineering firm, and he received his sentence on Tuesday after his conviction for corruption and fraud last month. So a police investigation revealed that SNC Lavalin executives paid bribes of roughly $2.3 million in order to secure a $128 million contract to repair the Jacques Cartier Bridge deck in the early 2000s. So in 2017, Michel Fournier, former CEO of the Federal Bridge Corporation, admitted to receiving the bribes through Swiss bank accounts between 1997 and 2004. Fournier, who served as chief of staff to Jean Chrétien when he was opposition leader in the early 1990s, was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison and has since received full parole. Now, ex-SNC Vice President Kamal Francis was also hit with forgery and fraud charges in 2021, and those court proceedings are ongoing. So SNC Lavalin, now known as Atkins Realis, they rebranded, agreed in 2022 to pay Quebec nearly $30 million over 3 years to settle criminal bribery charges stemming from work on the bridge. The deal, a so-called deferred prosecution agreement, allowed the company to continue doing business with governments.
And before we look at markets and numbers today, Canada's largest documentary film festival begins today. But the head of it, I understand, says the organization is in trouble, in jeopardy.
Yes, so the Hot Docs Canadian International Documentary Festival is facing ongoing uncertainty over its finances and concerns over a mass staff exodus. So Hot Docs' new president, Marie Nelson, says economic constraints led organizers to apply tighter curation to this year's edition, which will feature 168 documentaries, down from 213 last year. Now, the 11-day marathon opens with a U.S. doc about American R&B singer Luther Vandross, and a Canadian highlight will be Neil Diamond's Red Fever. But the festival was disappointed to be left out of the federal budget last week after asking for a $2 million in emergency support. So Nelson says the organization has proposed a leaner version of itself that can deliver its vision following losses during the pandemic, which forced a 2-year closure of the Hot Docs Ted Rogers Cinema. Now, Nelson is a former senior vice president at ABC News/Disney, and she says she's arranging meetings with federal ministries to continue conversations directly about securing funding for this nonprofit. And she hopes that the 31st Hot Docs isn't the last one.
What's going on in those markets then, Crystalie?
In Europe, markets are lower as investors digest a fresh set of earnings. Germany is down, the UK is up, France is down. In Asia, markets took a breather after 2 straight days of rallies, mirroring moves on Wall Street. So Japan is down, Shanghai is up, Hong Kong is up. Oil is up 2 cents to $82.83 U.S. per barrel. Gold is up $9.74 to $2,325.91 U.S. per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.14 of a cent to 73.12 cents U.S.
All right, thank you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
With business news, that's Crystalie Ramlakan. Time right now is 6:43 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app or on YouTube. Remember, our comedy festival contest continues. If you have a joke specifically that you would share with your mom or your mom would share with you, the so-called mom joke, as opposed to the dad joke. Maybe it's less of a groaner. I don't know. Give us a call, 788-3205. It's just an exciting opportunity for you to get on stage at a taping of The Debaters. So you'll win tickets to go see that at the Comedy Festival, but you can actually get up on stage and share your joke with the audience. So radio893@cbc.ca is our show email, but to enter the contest, win@cbc.ca. or the listener line, 788-3205, and we will play some jokes a little bit later in the morning because we have had some entries coming in. It is mainly clear at 6 degrees in Winnipeg, and it's also clear in Brandon and 7. Thompson is partly cloudy and -2. Still ahead in this half hour, how long do you spend brushing your teeth? If it's less than 2 minutes, it's not long enough. We're going to talk more about optimal teeth brushing. Perfect for this time of morning. That's coming up in a few minutes from now. Right now, though, a bit of music that'll match today's forecast with a high of 22 on the way in Winnipeg. Toronto artist Flower Boy has a spring-like tune. This is from his new EP that's called Bury Me in the Sand. It's called Fresh Air, Air Inside.
voice on speaker. Been away for days, I wanna see her. Got me left for dead, but she a keeper. And when she came down from the ceiling, I pinched myself, oh what a feeling. With my heart on my sleeve, it's official. Naked on the sofa until they drop me in a casket I cannot stop. I put it first, it's different than the last time. Pumping air into my chest so I can breathe again.
Flower Boy from the new EP called Bury Me in the Sand. Fresh air, air inside on CBC 89.3 FM.
We've all heard of dad jokes. We want you to tell us a mom joke. That's any joke a mom would love. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival and CBC have created the ultimate comedy contest. Send us your best joke and you could get the chance to tell it on Information Radio. The best two jokesters will then face off at a live taping of The Debaters at the Winnipeg Comedy Festival and win an amazing prize pack. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
Well, the jokes are coming in. Here's one we got.
Hi, my name is Nina Logan, and I'm calling from sunny St. James, and I have a good mom joke for the comedy festival. What do you call a mother cow after she's had her baby? Decaffeinated. Okay, hope you like the joke. Bye.
I actually really did like that joke. Hey, bravo, bravo. I love that everyone's taking this in their own way, right? It could be a joke. As I mentioned, would tell your mom, or your mom told you that one's about a mother cow. Melissa Brandt wrote in to win at cbc.ca. So there's two ways to enter. You can call or you can write to us. So Melissa wrote in and said, here's one of my favorite jokes to tell kids during a lunch program. Ready? Why can you never run through a campground? You can only ran because it's past tense. Ha! I think Abby really liked that, judging from the laugh on the other side of the glass. I like that one too. So that's Melissa Brandt. Everyone that sends in a joke or calls in a joke is entered to into the contest to get up at the comedy festival at a taping of The Debaters, tell their joke, and then of course just enjoy the comedy festival and enjoy the shows. Looks like a really great lineup this year. We will let you know next week who has won our contest, but keep those entries coming. And also want to mention that if you want to come and cheer me on and give me some encouragement, I'm one of the people people performing. Never done stand-up in my life. I'm aiming for mildly amusing. And that's next Wednesday at the Gas Station Theatre. They have Laughing with the Stars, quote unquote. It's just people that are known around town that are giving it a shot at an open mic night. So I'm one of those people. Dean Jenkinson asked if I wanted to try it, and I thought, why not? We should all do things that make us nervous. So that's one of those things for me. So that's next Wednesday. But much more coming up in the Comedy Festival. Please keep your entries coming. Well, you know that sound. Maybe you're actually doing that right now, brushing your teeth. It's something that most of us have done twice on a daily basis for most of our lives. But are you brushing your teeth in the most optimal way? April is actually Oral Hygiene Month. It's a perfect time to brush up on your toothbrushing skills. CBC radio producer Julie Dupre has been looking into best practices when it comes to polishing the pearly whites, and she's with us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's go to square one. Beyond wanting a bright smile and fresh breath, why do we brush our teeth?
Well, the most basic reason why we should brush our teeth is for bacteria management. You see, our mouths are full of microscopic living cells that enter our bodies through the food we eat, the liquids we drink, and just stuff we put in our mouths. And research has found that our mouths can contain more than 700 types of bacteria, and it's the second largest group of microbes found in our body. And our oral microbiomes, that's just a fancy way of saying our mouths, have all these different types of surfaces, like our hard teeth, our soft gums, and lots of spit. So it's a pretty great environment for the growth of a variety of bacteria. But to find out why oral health professionals want us to brush, I spoke with Mary Bertone. She is the director and an associate professor at the School of Dental Hygiene at the University of Manitoba. She's also a dental hygienist and is really passionate about regular toothbrushing and its impact on our oral microbiomes.
These different types of bacteria, if we don't manage them by brushing our teeth or cleaning in between our teeth, then they have that ability to start to communicate to each other and I always say they start to create like a party in your mouth that you don't want to happen because it's starting to destroy either the enamel on your teeth or your gum tissues.
I love that line. A party in your mouth that you don't want to happen.
I like it too. Now, this is, although, about more than just our oral health, though, right?
It is. Now, there have been multiple studies that have found links between the health of our teeth and mouths and our general health. Poor oral hygiene has been linked to the development of conditions such as type 2 diabetes, cognitive decline, and cardiovascular disease. Dr. Heather Carr, past president of the Canadian Dental Association, recently spoke on the CBC podcast The Dose about some of those health impacts.
There's so many factors involved, but definitely we certainly, in the most serious cases, if bacteria gets in the bloodstream, individuals get bacterial endocarditis. Now, it is rare, thankfully, but if you have certain valve issues in your heart, other conditions, you'd be more prone to that. And there's certainly indications that it can increase the risk of pneumonia. And we've also seen some studies that are showing low birth weight or preterm babies with individuals with gum disease.
Now, in case you're wondering, bacterial endocarditis is a bacterial infection of the inner layer of the heart or the heart valves. And some studies have even suggested that poor oral health in children can have negative effects on achievement in school.
So now that we know why we should brush our teeth, what is the best way to actually go about it?
Well, I was shocked to discover when I started looking into this that there are several techniques out there on how to brush your teeth. There are about 4 or 5 of them that I kept encountering. And these techniques all have names like Stillman's brushing method, there's Charter's method, and the phones method. But not all methods are best for everyone. Like Charter's is intended to help people with braces brush properly with all of that metal in their mouths. And other methods are meant to help treat certain gum diseases like gingivitis or periodontitis. But for most people, Mary Bertone recommends the modified Bass method.
You are angling your bristles at a 45-degree angle towards the gum line where the gums meet the teeth. And then you are gently doing a gentle vibration, and then you're rolling down the toothbrush to bring down the plaque and remove the plaque. And then it's always overlapping. So you overlap where you were last, and then you continue around the arch. on the outside, you do the inside, and then we also can't forget to scrub the tops of our teeth as well. And we should also clean our tongue.
Now, I should clarify that when she says to do gentle vibrations, she means to move your brush back and forth horizontally at the tooth and gum line before sweeping the plaque down and away. And the Bass technique is actually named after someone, Dr. Charles Bass, who was an American medical doctor and researcher born in 1875. He's known as the father of preventative dentistry, and he died in 1975 at the age of 100, which is pretty remarkable for someone born in 1875 to live that long.
And maybe it's got something to do with the teeth brushing. People on YouTube are watching me as you're describing. I'm like moving my hand, trying to imagine how I'm supposed to vibrate. For how long should we brush, Julie?
For a full 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yeah. You can use a timer or maybe play a song that runs for 2 minutes so you know that you're not cheating yourself out of brushing time. I actually thought I was a super thorough toothbrusher until I timed myself and realized I was averaging about 40 seconds, so far below the 2 minutes that were required. And the Academy of General Dentistry actually found that most people spend between 45 to 70 seconds per day brushing. And because you're supposed to brush at least twice daily, that means you should be brushing for 4 minutes per day. You should also floss each time you brush.
And when do you brush, before or after eating?
There's no solid consensus on this. Some dentists believe brushing before eating helps your teeth by giving them a protective barrier. But if you're going to brush after eating, both the Canadian Dental Association and the American Dental Association recommend waiting at least 20 to 30 minutes after eating before brushing. And that's especially important after you've consumed something acidic like coffee or orange juice, which weakens your tooth enamel. Mary Bertone says that if you can't brush after eating, you can chew some sugar-free gum, or my preferred option, eat some cheese, because that'll help neutralize the acid in your mouth. But then I guess you're dealing with cheese breath, which is, win some, lose some proposition, I guess.
I have no problem with anything to do with cheese, so I like that. Who knew? Finally, before you go, what about the best tools? What do we look for when it comes to brushes and pastes?
So Mary Bertone recommends when you're looking for a toothbrush to look for one with soft bristles and a not too large head so it's easier to maneuver around your mouth, and a handle that fits in your hand comfortably. And if you prefer an electric brush, that's fine too. But again, a small head with soft bristles. And you need to replace your toothbrush when the bristles start to flare out and get shaggy. So about every 2 to 3 months, depending on your brushing habits. As for toothpaste, again, Mary Bertone's recommendation, number 1, is that it has to have fluoride, because fluoride helps remineralize your teeth. It should also have the Canadian Dental Association's seal of approval on it. And one final note on brushing and fluoride, the Canadian Dental Association and other notable oral health agencies recommend that you do not rinse out your mouth after brushing. Just spit out the excess toothpaste and go about your day. That way, the fluoride will stay on your teeth longer, but it might make your cheese chaser just taste a little off.
All right. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks.
Perfectly timed item for the morning show, of course. 2 minutes of brushing. Now we're all going to take out little timers and see how we stack up, right? Julie Dupre, a producer for CBC Radio here in Winnipeg. It is 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, and let's turn our attention to more serious matters. Heather Wells joins us from our news center this morning.
Good morning. A Western Manitoba school trustee faces calls to resign after comments on residential schools and reconciliation were made at at the Mountain View School Division meeting on Monday. That's in Western Manitoba, as we mentioned. Manitoba's education minister says the province is going to launch a review of that school board. Jury selection sets to begin today in a Winnipeg courtroom in the case of an alleged serial killer. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 women in 2022. Our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather. It is 6 degrees and mainly clear in Winnipeg today. Sunny and 22. It will be windy. Winds will be south 40 to 60. But when it's that warm, it might feel a little more like a hairdryer wind than something that's going to cool us. So we'll see how the day develops. Traffic's developing fine. Your commute's looking good. 788-3093 if you do need to reach us with any updates. You're with Information Radio on CBC. National and international news coming up. And then in the next hour of the show, we'll hear more about that story that Heather mentioned about a school trustee at a school board meeting talking about anti-racism policies. Some people in Dauphin are very upset, and you'll hear why. That's coming up in the next hour of the show when we walk you through the details of what happened there in a little bit of a longer way than we're able to do in the news. So stay tuned. We've got that. In addition, in the next hour of the show, tomorrow night, if you are a hockey fan, is going to be a little bit of a late one. Starts at 9 o'clock, the Jets game, which means you're going to be staying up later maybe than usual. So how does that impact your ability to watch and also to function? Do the playoffs really affect our ability to get through our regular days? Maybe pushing it at work, a little bit groggy? We're going to talk all about that. Stay tuned.
On the current.
As an elected official, you need to kind of be on all the time when you're in public, but you shouldn't feel intimidated to go out and about.
It is a lot of work to win a seat on city council, but a lot of municipal elected officials are quitting once they get the job, saying they're facing too much abuse from colleagues and the public. It's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Something big is coming to Canada's automotive industry, and for days we've had hints it's coming from Honda in the form of a new electric vehicle plant. We will finally learn the full details later this morning. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Ontario Premier Doug Ford will be there for the announcement, and Janice McGregor will be following closely from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, when we talk about a new deal with Honda, how big is big?
One of the reasons you're going to hear politicians reaching for all the superlatives today, Marcia, is that this isn't just about one facility. Not only is Honda revealing a major expansion of its assembly plant in Alliston, but it's also going to manufacture its electric vehicle batteries in Canada and invest in the components for those batteries. And that's why when it all adds up and the bottom line's revealed, we're expecting this to be the biggest play yet in Canada. Ultimately, this Honda investment will create jobs in multiple locations. We know they're all in Ontario. Quebec's minister revealed earlier this week his government had been outbid. And it took incentives from both the federal and provincial governments to land it. And that's the second big number we've yet to nail down. Politicians a bit cagey when previous EV deals were announced, not always fully transparent about everything taxpayers had to kick in, citing corporate competitiveness concerns. But unlike the ongoing production subsidies offered to land Canada's first two battery plants in Windsor and St. Thomas, the sweetener for Honda this time is taking the form of specially designed tax credits. Ontario's Economic Development Minister Vic Fedeli explained they're not simply handing over a giant novelty check for $1 billion.
No money is distributed to any company until they've met their hiring goals and their construction goals. So if they haven't started, there's no money issued whatsoever.
But what about the return on this investment for taxpayers? Not everyone's convinced, Janice.
Oh, it takes a lot of money to compete globally. And we've seen skepticism from union leaders in Windsor, for example, when foreign workers from the Korean parent company were brought in there to do jobs they believed had been promised to Canadians. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said yesterday, if we're shelling out big for Honda, there'd better be strings attached.
Public dollars should be tied to jobs and investments that benefit Canadians. It should not be that we just give a blank check to a company and say, we hope that you're going to hire Canadians. We hope that this is going to be beneficial.
Federal Conservatives, too, have amplified this kind of skepticism about these deals, a departure from their provincial cousins at Queen's Park, where Doug Ford's government is all in.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Donald Trump's legal team will appear in the U.S. Supreme Court today. At issue is a constitutional argument that the former president have immunity from criminal prosecution. As freelance reporter Steve Futterman tells us, arguments at the Supreme Court begin as Trump's hush money trial continues in New York.
Donald Trump's attention today will be focused on two different courtrooms. The one in New York, where his hush money trial is underway, and the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, where the justices will hear Trump's novel claim about presidential power.
The president has to have immunity.
The immunity claim, which Trump only brought up after he was charged in several cases, would prevent him from ever being tried for his actions on January 6th. Law professor Lori Levinson.
Is there such a thing as absolute immunity for somebody who served as president?
Some legal experts have mocked Trump's claim, including Trump critic and former federal prosecutor Andrew Weissman.
There's no way that there's going to be immunity in this case.
As for Trump's hush money trial in New York, this will be the second day on the witness stand for David Pecker, the former publisher of the National Enquirer. On Tuesday, jurors heard how Pecker helped Trump in 2016 by not publishing a number of embarrassing stories, including Trump's alleged affair with adult film star Stormy Daniels. It's a method called catch and kill. Maggie Haberman of the New York Times.
Trump knows what that means, and he knows what kind of information that meant that David Pecker had. And David Pecker was very poised, and I think that he's going to tell a story that the jury is going to find pretty compelling.
Trump, as required, will be in the New York courtroom again today, but it's likely he will also be getting updates from Washington. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
In Beijing. The plane carrying U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken touched down this morning. He is taking part in several events and meetings. Then he sits down for high-level talks with his Chinese counterpart. Blinken could also meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. His core mission is to level the playing field for American companies doing business in China. Earlier this morning, he raised what the U.S. describes as unfair Chinese trade practices with government officials in Shanghai. Iran's judiciary confirms Iranian rapper Tumar Salahi has been sentenced to death. Salahi made public statements in support of the Women Life Freedom protest movement. He was arrested in 2022 after an interview with CBC News. Salahi spent more than a year in prison. He was briefly released and then rearrested. He alleges he was tortured behind bars. Iran's judiciary also says he's entitled to a reduced sentence. The summer of 2024 could be hotter, another hot one. That's the warning from the climate scientists, even as they say El Nino is coming to an end. Senior science reporter Nicole Mortellaro tells us more.
2023 isn't a year many Canadians will forget. It was the hottest summer on record, the hottest year, and we experienced the worst wildfire season in history. Now, there's the fear that we could be in for a repeat this year, even though El Nino is expected to end by the middle of spring.
So the long-term trends are not the surprising thing.
Gavin Schmidt is the director of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies. He says 2023's anomalous rise in temperature could have been a blip, but
basing it on the El Nino at the beginning of the year and then seeing, how things are working out this year, it suggests that 2024 is going to be almost the same as 2023.
El Nino typically raises global temperatures in the following year, and 2024 has already started with record highs. Karen Gleason is a climate scientist with the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
So if 2024 follows the path, it's already in a different neighborhood. It's in a warmer neighborhood to begin with.
With an early start to wildfire season in BC and Alberta, it's likely many people are anxious about what summer has in store. Nicole Mortellaro, CBC News, Toronto.
Cleanup crews are on the scene of the most famous cabaret club in Paris. C'est bon? The sails of the red windmill on top of the Moulin Rouge fell to the ground overnight. The club manager says it's the first time that has happened in 135 years. It's not clear what caused the incident. The sails fell down a little after 2 a.m. local time, but the boulevard was empty and no one was injured. Today, Venice becomes the first major city in the world to charge tourists an entrance fee. The fragile UNESCO heritage city has been overrun with more than 30 million visitors a year. And as Megan Williams tells us, the fee is an effort to deter day trippers.
For cruise ship vacationers to train travelers, the already costly city of Venice just got more expensive. Starting today, day trippers will have to pay just to set foot on the city of canals. For the cost of €5, about $7.50 Canadian dollars, tourists get a QR code, which they then have to show at several entrance points to the city or during random checks. Failure to produce the code can lead to a fine as high as $450. Locals and visiting relatives are exempt.
Fare qualcosa per Venezia.
Finally, something for Venice, says this resident.
Giusto che chi viene da fuori paghi qualcosa.
Given all Venice offers, it's fair that visitors pay something in return, says this local. Despite some small protests by residents who say the move turns Venice into a theme park, the city's mayor, Luigi Brugnaro, insists it's not a money grab.
Chi viene in giornata e ha il diritto di farlo possa sapere.
With this new system, visitors can know how many people are set to come on any given day and decide whether or not it's worth the trip then, he says. The entrance fee to access Venice's historic center applies to 29 peak days, mostly weekends, until mid-July, when the city will assess the success of the new scheme. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
The music of Venice. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in sunny downtown Winnipeg, and we're looking ahead to one of the most warm days of the week coming up here on your Thursday. Thanks so much for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. We this morning are going to take you right over to our news center for headlines, because this hour on our program, the stories Heather is about to mention have been developing in our province, and we have extended coverage on our program of them as well this hour. So, Heather, what's happening in the news?
Yes, good morning. A mother in the Mountain View School Division, that's in Western Manitoba, is calling on a school board trustee to step down over comments he made at a school board meeting on Monday. Paul Coffey is accused of sharing hateful opinions and misinformation about inclusion policies and about residential schools. Jerry Ann Thompson is the mother. She's an Indigenous woman. Her two children are in that Parkland area school division, and she says she was shocked by what she heard. The province says it's going to investigate, so we'll hear more about what's going on there. And jury selection starts today for the trial of a Winnipeg man accused of killing 4 women. The partial remains of Rebecca Contois were found in a garbage bin and at a city-run landfill in 2022. Police say they believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are at a different landfill, and a 4th woman, known only as Buffalo Woman, has not yet been found. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty. I'll be back with more on those stories and other news from Manitoba at 7:30.
Stick around for a second. I want to ask your opinion about something we had on the show before 7, if you have a chance, Heather.
Absolutely.
I also want to build on what Heather mentioned about the trial that's starting today. At 10 to 8 this morning, we have a lawyer that's going to join us to talk about what the jury selection process looks like in Canada. So stay tuned for that. Right now, let's get to Abby Adiemi, who's here with our forecast.
Good morning once again. In Winnipeg, it's 7 degrees. We are in for some sunny conditions this Thursday morning. However, just expect a transition to a mix of sun and clouds around the noon period. Now, despite the clouds rolling in, it's going to be a warm one. We're heading to a high of 22 today. And don't forget, it's going to be windy also coming from the south. And tonight, we're going to see some clouds crawl in, and like, oh, come on. We're going to see some clouds crawl in, but we're looking at a high of 22 today.
Thank you, Abby.
You're welcome.
I've been there, brother. Let's get into what's happening in the morning commute.
Yeah, really quiet commute so far overall. But if you do see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Corey Funk. Man, when you can't get a word out, right? I've been there, and you're like, oh, why can't I pronounce this right now? Why can't I say this? So here is something that I told Heather to stick around for, to chat about. If you were with us listening before 7 o'clock, then you may have heard a special report that came in from Julie Dupre, CBC producer. She was talking about the fact that April's Oral Hygiene Month, and we were visiting how we are supposed to be brushing our teeth. And so what Julie said was, Heather, did you hear all of this item?
I did, yes. In fact, Julie and I talked about it earlier this morning, too.
Okay, so Julie said that she talked to a whole bunch of experts, went through everything. It was a really fun, comprehensive report. But she said that we are actually supposed to brush our teeth twice a day, and each time for 2 solid minutes. And then she said she thought she was a long toothbrusher, but she timed herself and it was 40 seconds. And I'm in that camp. But you are you're like the overachiever of our team. How long do you brush your teeth?
It's awful. I feel so
it's
bad
great.
now.
Why? I totally want to hear about it.
Well,
Inspire
because
us.
I'm over brushing. Usually I will be right at the 4-minute mark. Because if I go over, I've got this electric toothbrush that gives me a frowny face if I go over 4 minutes. So I always try to get in under. But like this morning, I went over, got a frowny face.
What? So what does it do? Like it actually, does it beep or what does it actually do, this electric toothbrush?
Okay, so it times you. It has all these different settings. My kids brought it for me because they know I love oral health, maybe too much. And if you're under, if you do a good job, if you're not, if you brush your teeth properly and hit every tooth, you'll get starry, smiley face. But if you go over a certain amount of time, and I've done, 358 and got a starry, smiley face. So my toothbrush seems to think that 358 is okay, but not 4.
Wow. So it's supposed to be 2 in the morning, 2 at night. Does that mean you're actually brushing your teeth for 8 minutes a day?
Well, and you know what else? I use 2 different toothbrushes as well.
What's your secondary toothbrush?
My secondary toothbrush is a little teeny one that I got from the dentist to do the bottom teeth, the inside of the bottom teeth.
Wow. Holy moly.
It's crazy. Right now I feel really like something's wrong with me.
No, I've got mad respect for you now. This is like, wow, who knew? You know what? If you're into it, you're into it. You will not be the only one. I think that we should throw this to the listener line. Okay, now that we all know we're supposed to be brushing our teeth for 2 minutes, are you in my camp where you're surprised and you're like, wow, I got to step it up. I'm 40 seconds or whatever I am. I'm probably around that mark. Or are you like Heather and you're like, no, you don't have to tell me. I love it. Call us and let us know about your toothbrushing habits. 788-3205. Time right now is 7:15 a.m. on 89.3. Still ahead this half hour, we'll have morning sports. Remember, we have no Jets game tonight in the playoffs. The next game is tomorrow, but we'll tee up what else happened around the league last night and also, of course, other sports that are going on. So stay tuned. Scott Reguer will join us. Right now, we do return to the top story in the news today. Concerns are being raised about comments made by a school trustee during a presentation at a school board meeting in Dauphin. So the meeting in question was held by the Mountain View School Division on April 22nd. And trustee Paul Coffey was speaking about the school board's anti-racism policies. Some of the topics he covered include the definition of treaties, colonization, and various terms to describe Indigenous people. He also referenced residential schools. Now, here is some of what was said at the meeting. There's a warning that some people may find comments offensive.
So we go to residential schools. They were good. Like, these are the good things. They're essential for reading and writing and arithmetic. Also, enforcement of schools, school attendance. To this date, children are required to attend school. In 1887, colonial children were forced, or it was required, to school. And then the Indians weren't asked to go to school until the 1920s.
Coffey also covered the topic of white privilege. He says he has some concerns about the way the term is used.
So white privilege is the unquestioned and unearned set of advantages, entitlements, benefits, and choices bestowed upon people solely because they are white. I find that interesting that now just to blame another race, that's kind of simply solving the problem. Get rid of the white people and you'll get rid of the problem. So it's kind of a nice thing until it isn't. So white privilege is a racist comment, and therefore, just as you cannot say a red savage, a dumb Ukrainian, violent black, or a smart Asian, you cannot say white privilege.
Manitoba's education minister, Nello Altamar, says he's troubled by the comments and is calling for a governance review. Some parents have also expressed disappointment and concern. Jerry Ann Thompson has 2 kids in the Mountain View School Division.
It worries me because I am very active in my daughter's school right now, and I see the progress that's being made, and I see how well they're more proud of their culture, their history, because it's more accepted in the schools now. And if we were to cut funding for that, for the education of what really happened in residential schools and what Indigenous culture is, then we're back to square one where I was in school and I used to hide the fact that I was Indigenous. I went to a fairly Caucasian school, and I think I was the only Indigenous family. And I was so relieved when the next Indigenous family moved in because they were a little bit darker than me. That was my experience in school, and it's not my daughter's experience. And I want it to keep going that way.
The president of the Manitoba Métis Federation, David Chartrand, is among Indigenous leaders calling for Coffey's removal. He said the comments that Coffey made were not based on facts. He spoke of his own experience when he attended residential day school.
I was raised in a school, in day school, and I was whipped by the nuns. I was whipped in my wrist, and they were speaking my language. I was beaten on the back of my calves because they got tired and they put me in my tiptoes in a circle on a chalkboard because I spoke my language, not because I was a bad kid, just because I spoke my language. I spoke Soto. And for that to be, that was my first language, all my mom spoke, and then I was punished vigorously by the nuns and shamed to be who I am. And for this person to say it's not real, this guy is absolutely dangerous. And I think my recommendation, I wouldn't even give the courtesy of this man to be allowed to resign. I would, if I was a school board and I was the chair of that school board, I would remove him effective immediately.
CBC News reached out to Paul Coffey, but he has not responded to our request for an interview. Parkland Human Rights Alliance, meantime, is a group that formed earlier this year to speak on behalf of marginalized groups in the Mountain View Division. On Tuesday, parents with the Alliance sent a letter to Education Minister Nello Altomare urging the province to investigate the incident and to use, quote, whatever tools that are available to remove Trustee Coffey. In addition, the Mountain View School Division Board of Trustees also posted a statement, on its website. It reads, quote, Mountain View School Division Board of Trustees is aware of personal statements and comments during a presentation made by a single trustee during its public board meeting on Monday, April 22nd. Mr. Coffey was speaking as an individual, and his opinions and comments were his own and possibly those of other constituents in his ward. Mr. Coffey was not speaking on behalf of the board. Mountain View School Division stands by our continued work with Indigenous partners and our tireless work around reconciliation while we work to fulfill the outcomes of our Indigenous education framework. End quote. If you want to read more about this story, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. And of course, throughout the day, we'll continue to stay on developments and follows, and we'll continue to reach out to Paul Coffey with our request for an interview.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
It is right now 7:22 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app or on YouTube. And up next, bit of music.
outside in the garden the other day when we start to talk about life and family. You picking cedar helped us connect and pray. Though we'd never met, there was no reason to circumvent. Everything flowed through us effortlessly. Your willingness to share your story with me is the definition of love and bravery. Dear little hummingbird, sweet little hummingbird, you are a lantern in this dim world.
We're listening to Julian Taylor with his contribution to the Chorus of Courage project. It's called Sweet Little Hummingbird. Chorus of Courage's album, if you want to check it out, is called Always by Your Side. And you can get it now. This is a musical collective that holds space for the voices of those who have survived violence of all kinds. .25 is the time right now. It's 7 degrees in Winnipeg under a mainly sunny sky in the city right now. For the day, though, becoming a mix of sun and cloud right around the noon hour. So we'll see what develops. In this afternoon, the winds will pick up a little, but it's going to be warm. A nice high of 22 degrees. And if you're out and about waiting for the bus and maybe you're walking this morning, it's a beautiful morning for that. Well, next on the show, let's talk hockey. Scott Reguer is here with Sports and More. Hello there.
Just want to say kudos to you, Marcy, for being grammatically correct where so few on air are, including me. Sunny sky, as in singular, not skies, as I always tend to say. Just like I say championships when they play one hockey championship, for instance. But yeah, just a little reminder. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to pretend I do it correctly all the time and move on.
Okay.
Rough night for Canadian teams in the NHL playoffs, right?
Yeah, a couple in action, and they both lost. Toronto, courtesy of a familiar foe in Brad Marchand, lost to go 2-1 down in that series against the Bruins, while the Oilers fell in OT against the Los Angeles Kings. So that one is now tied up at a game apiece, just as the series between the Jets and the Colorado Avalanche is. Winnipeg flying to Denver yesterday to get ready to resume that series. Nobody won more home contests. We've talked a bit about this week. Nobody has won more at home than the Avalanche. However, Jets defenseman Josh Morrissey says that stat's not really bothering them.
Every team tries to make their home arena a tough place to play, and certainly they've been able to do that this year. And I haven't watched all 41 of their home games to tell you what they did well in those ones. We know that they feel good playing at home, and we've had some success there this year. So we need to be a confident group going in there on Friday night.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Winnipeg certainly didn't have trouble playing in Colorado during the regular season. That 7-0 shutout near the end, testament to that. So the playoffs, as far as the Jets and their fans are concerned, get back in order tomorrow.
Let's move to Olympic news this morning and continued concern around anti-doping.
Yeah, as sports representatives from dozens of countries, Marcy, are in D.C. right now discussing that subject. This comes after 23 Chinese athletes tested positive for a banned substance at the Tokyo Games. That substance, a heart medication, is the same one that saw Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva get stripped of her gold medal in Tokyo. And yet Chinese authorities convinced the World Anti-Doping Agency that their athletes, all swimmers, 6 of whom went on to win medals in Tokyo, were victims of accidental contamination. Canadian swimmer Brent Hayden is among those speaking out.
Athletes are angry right now. They're heartbroken and they're angry. An opening of a Pandora's box, because if athletes are allowed to just claim food contamination, what's going to stop other athletes from using the same excuse?
The World Anti-Doping Agency, Marcy, will be under scrutiny then today as the America's Sports Council puts them through questioning. WADA is going to need to provide all of the information it has to show whether it was right or wrong in letting the Chinese swimmers compete. Regardless, Marcy, many calling now for an independent investigation, especially since many of those same swimmers are ready to get in the water in Paris, with the next Olympics now just 3 months away.
And finally, this morning, a Canadian is behind a new initiative for Olympic mothers.
Yeah, it's called Momentum, the brainchild of Canadian rower Jill Moffat. It seeks to provide resources around pregnancy, postpartum, and IVF, among other things. Moffat, Marcy, wants the Canadian Olympic Committee to get on board with this. Right now, maternal resources are up to individual sports organizations.
I really started to see this as, an equity issue for women to be able to compete throughout their athletic lifespan and not be cut off short. But I also very much see this as a safe sport issue as well. I kind of thought you're in the wrong kind of culture and you're having these very vulnerable conversations about pregnancy or egg freezing and needing time off and needing these things. If it's not set up, could be a very horrible experience.
Moffat is, among other things, trying to provide grants ahead of the Paris Olympics that would cover the costs, allowing athletes to bring their kids to those games. So you can read more on Momentum on our website this morning. We're taking it. Isn't that a great name?
Yeah.
And great music, apparently, to go along with that piece if you take it in.
All right, Scott, thank you.
You bet.
It's Scott Regehr with Morning Sports. Well, speaking of which, we are all talking about that game time tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Some people saying, it's late for me. We're going to hear from some Winnipeggers who are struggling to stay awake during the Jets playoff run. That's coming up. A bit of fun after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is sunny and it's 7 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. We're going to be windblown and warm today. That wind is going to pick up south 40, gusting to 60. Our high today is 22. Calls this morning for a trustee in the Mountain View School Division to step down. Paul Coffey is one of 9 school board trustees in that Western Manitoba division. In his presentation at Monday's board meeting, Coffey says certain inclusion and reconciliation initiatives cause division. Coffey also expresses doubt over the number of Indigenous people who attended residential schools. Jerry Ann Thompson's children go to school in the Mountain View division. The Indigenous mother is troubled by Coffey's opinions.
The more and more I listen to it, the more things that I found just shocking for him to even allude to about the residential schools, how there might have been some good to it until there wasn't.
Thompson says Coffey should step down. A group called the Parkland Human Rights Alliance has asked the education minister to do what he can to remove Coffey from the school board. As of Wednesday, Coffey had not yet responded to a request for comment. Now, the province is investigating. Nello Altamar is Manitoba's Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning. He is concerned about the comments and the fact the presentation wasn't stopped.
We're doing a lot of work on reconciliation. Manitoba leads the country in the work of reconciliation. We need to remember that. We need to ensure that our schools continue this important work.
Altamar says his department is launching a governance review of that school board, the Mountain View School Board, and he expects it will help guide any decisions going forward. Jury selection is about to begin today in a Winnipeg courtroom in the case of an alleged serial killer. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 women in 2022. The partial remains of Rebecca Contois were recovered from a garbage bin and the Brady Road landfill. Police believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are in a different landfill north of Winnipeg. The location of the 4th victim, known as Buffalo Woman, is unknown. After jury selection, Skibicki's trial is then scheduled to begin next Monday and continue until June. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. In BC, a wildfire evacuation is underway in the community of Chetwynd. A 10-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 is now closed between Chetwynd and Prince George as that fire continues to grow. Sharon Nickel is with the Prince George Wildfire Center.
Local RCMP and the Chetwynd Fire Department were undertaking a tactical evacuation on the recommendation of BC Wildfire Service. So they were getting folks that were on that far west end, just out of the area, just in the interest of public life and safety, which is our primary concern.
The fire, which is suspected to have been human-caused, has grown to about 50 hectares. The BC Wildfire Service says it has more resources on the way. In New York, that was the scene in New York, just outside Manhattan Courthouse, as Donald Trump in the last hour was greeted by a crowd of supporters. Trump arrived early this morning to attend his ongoing hush money trial. His legal team has another big day cut out for them. Some will be in Washington, D.C. at the Supreme Court for another significant trial. Trump's constitutional argument is going before the Supreme Court. It's his claim that as a former president, he has immunity from criminal prosecution. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Cooking has been a lifelong dream for a 17-year-old with autism disorder. Drew Blaine works in the Marymount Kitchen in a program that helps at-risk youth stay in school and develop a career. With the help of his mentors, he is learning all the preparatory skills required to be a chef.
Generally just whatever's on the list in the kitchen. Cut vegetables, bake cookies, or bake anything. Usually the lunch will be on there, so you make that, and cleaning around.
Marymount is a youth and family social services organization. Blaine has 2 morning shifts there every week while going to school. And through a Marymount scholarship and the help of his teachers, he now has been accepted in Red River College's Indigenous Culinary course. You can read more of his story as well as other Manitoba news. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
With your regional forecast now on CBC Manitoba, this is Abby Adiemi.
Good morning once again. 7 degrees in Winnipeg, and it's promising to be a sunny day. However, just keep an eye out for clouds rolling in later. Now, despite that, temperatures will warm us up and we will be getting to a high of 22. Just a heads up, it's going to be breezy from the south later on, so brace for that. In Brandon, it is also 7 degrees. You can expect a blend of sun and clouds along with some southern winds, and you'll be reaching a high of 22. Up in Thompson, it's chilly at -2. Today's forecast calls for mainly cloudy conditions with a chance of showers later, topping out at 12 degrees. Churchill is sitting at a frosty 13 degrees. Today will remain cloudy with southern winds, and the temperature is hovering around 0. Down in Dauphin, it is a pleasant 14 degrees. Looking forward to a mix of sun and clouds and some winds from the south. Also, the high for today will be 22. Gimli is currently at 2 degrees, and we will be seeing mainly sunny conditions, then turn into a mix of sun and clouds, and the southern wind is also something to take into consideration as you get to a high of 19. Steinbach is currently at 6 degrees. Today will be sunny. You're heading for a high of 23. And lastly, Morris, you are at 5. The Pimna Valley region can anticipate mainly sunny weather with southern winds, and you'll be reaching a high of 23. The province is warming up.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Abby Adiemi is here with our forecast this morning and also text the show. So it sounds like today's a decent day to maybe even get some light raking in, and then it'll rain tomorrow, and then, it'll be all clean and fresh. You've been watching them clean your streets, I heard.
Yes, it was. We're those old people now that sat on the porch and watched the street cleaners last night.
It's exciting though, isn't it? It's like, woo!
It was. And there was so many little different. I thought it was just one machine that goes through. There was 4 or 5 different ones. one comes on and sweeps off the boulevard lawns at the same time.
It's a synchronized dance, man.
It was wild. It was fun. Yeah. Anyways, but except that one van that didn't move for the street cleaning. I'll never get over that. Never forgive them. Yes. Besides that, there's really not much else going on the streets this morning from what I've seen or heard. But if you're out there, if you're walking, biking, driving, you see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of being on the streets, a lot of people have been on the streets to watch the Jets games. Maybe you're at those whiteout parties this week. Are you still recovering, though, from Tuesday's Jets game? The 8:30 puck drop time. So by the time the game ends and you get home and you're all pumped up and then you try to go to sleep. Well, if that was tough on you, wait till tomorrow night. Tomorrow's game is in Denver, of course, and so the start is 9 o'clock our time. CBC's Jim Agapito caught up with some Jets fans to ask if the later start times are impacting their ability to root for the home team.
So we've been having some late games for the Jets. I got to ask, did you watch the last game?
I did not watch yesterday night's game, no.
And why is that?
You know what, for myself, I was just finishing up stuff at home and then wanted to get to bed, so it just wasn't like in the schedule.
I see that you're with your family here at the Forks. Does that have an impact on why watching the late game could be hard?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like someone like myself, it wouldn't really be that big of an issue if I didn't have anything else to do. But like someone like my wife, with putting the kids to bed and stuff like that, early bedtime, kids are going to bed right before the game, so there's no chance that we're all going to watch it together, right? So.
The next game is on Friday, another late one. Now, because it's a weekend, would you be more likely to watch a game?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that, like, again, for myself would be fine. But again, someone like my wife with the kid, or if I'm putting the kids to bed, it's not going to work out.
Is there a secret here to staying up late and watching games like this, you know, if you do have a family and whatnot?
I think maybe if the kids are in bed before the game starts, then you're good to go. Then you can watch it. You can't cheer too loud, but at the same time, they're in bed, so you can still get to watch it.
Sherry Johnston.
Now, did you watch the game last night?
I did.
How hard is it then to stay up and watch them?
It's very hard. I was disappointed last night. I couldn't keep my eyes open halfway through the third period, so I don't even know if they won or lost.
Unfortunately, we did lose 5-2.
I figured.
How are you dealing with these late games? I mean, the next one on Friday is going to be late as well. How do you deal with that?
Well, I guess I'm going to have to try and have an afternoon nap so I can stay up till the end of the game.
It is Friday, the next game in Colorado. I'm wondering, will you watch that game?
I will be watching it, and the secret will be maybe a nap beforehand, yes.
Jessica McCauley. Shaylin McCauley.
Did you stay up to watch the Jets game?
I did.
Yes.
How late did you stay up?
I think 11:30. Yeah, around there, maybe 12. Yeah. We went to bed.
Well, we booked today off. Yeah. And work from home days help too.
Also booked the day off, so that helps. Got to sleep in a little bit.
Is there a secret for staying up and watching late games?
No, I got home from work and had coffee, which I don't usually do. So.
Coffee at what time?
5:30.
There is another late game on Friday. Will you be staying up to watch the game?
I think so, yeah. Yep.
I will be, yes. I don't work Saturdays, so.
Does the time, the late starts, because they're going to be late, affect your likelihood to watch the games in the future?
I don't think so, no. Just happy that the Jets are in the playoffs, so.
I agree with Shay.
Are you disappointed with yesterday's loss?
A little bit, yeah. But we'll come back.
Yeah, unfortunately they lost, but that's okay. We still have more games to go.
Cody Selker.
Did you watch the Jets game last night?
No, I actually didn't. I was so tired, I fell asleep.
The fact that these games are playing so late, does that affect your ability to actually be able to go and cheer on the team?
Last night it did, actually.
There is a game on Friday, and Friday is another late start. Question for you, will you be watching the game?
Yeah, there's a better chance. Go Jets, go.
Mega laughs, mega shows recorded for CBC Jam, and at least 5 comedians per show. That's mega value for your money. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival is back April 30th to May 5th, and CBC is a proud sponsor. Catch Canadian performers Anne Pornell from The Great Canadian Baking Show, Lauren Ash from Superstore, and live tapings of The Debaters. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival, uplifting Canadian comedy. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
Well, let's get into this Junior Friday, shall we? That's what we call Thursday around here. Nice sunny sky out there, 7 degrees, heading for a high of 22 in Winnipeg. Music from Indian City.
Gonna find the place they call tomorrow. Tomorrow. It's the place we dreamed about. If we go, there ain't no doubt they'll follow. They'll follow. Suddenly we've come this far, I realize there's so much more to this life, and I believe in you, and if you believe in me, we're there by daylight. Oh, take me to the stars. start. Let's find out who we are, who we are. I wrote a song with you in mind. We can pass the past with you in mind for right now. Right now. I had a dream of you and I, 7 sacred teachings, show us why and show us how, show us how. Hear the voice of Mother Earth, she's asking what she's really worth, she's crying. Take me to the stars, we can never go too far. Yeah, take me to the stars, let's find out who we are, who we are. We are sky watchers, yeah, we are star people, yeah, we are sky watchers, we are star people. So take me to the stars, we can never go too far. Yeah, take me to the stars, let's find out who we are. Yeah, who we are. We are sky watchers, oh, we are star people. Yeah, we are sky watchers, oh, we are star people.
That's Indian City and Star People on CBC.
For breaking news as it happens, stay with CBC News. For the latest updates and what it means for Canadians, stay with CBC News. When the biggest stories break, both at home and around the world, stay with CBC News.
7:46 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. Lots of sunshine out there. 7 in Winnipeg, 7 degrees in Brandon. Up in Thompson, it is going to be a day where you're going to be a little bit cooler than here down south. It's been -2 for most of the morning. Your high is going to be 12. But in Winnipeg today, we could see 22 degrees. Coming up on the show after 8 o'clock, you just heard some Jets fans talking about trying to get sleep when they're staying up late to watch the games. Well, tomorrow night's the night. The game starts at 9 o'clock, so it's going to be a late one. How do you actually get a good night's sleep? We're going to talk more about that coming up after 8. Right now, though, let's return to one of the stories making news in Manitoba today in a warning that it deals with missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and may be triggering for some people. The jury selection for alleged serial killer Jeremy Skibicki is happening today. He is accused of killing 3 First Nations women and an unidentified woman also believed to be Indigenous. Their names are Rebecca Contois, 24 years old, Morgan Harris, who was 39, Mercedes Myron was only 26. The 4th unidentified woman has been named Buffalo Woman by the community. Given this high-profile case, we wanted to take a look at the process for jury selection in Canada. Michael Spratt is a criminal law specialist and a partner at the criminal law firm AGP Law in Ottawa and joins us via Zoom. Good morning. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Good morning.
So how does jury selection, how does this system work in this country, in Canada?
Well, the jury system is something, pretty special and unique and historic in our common law tradition. It's where the community comes together, and it's community members that make a determination of guilt or innocence. And any jury selection starts with a large number of potential jurors, potentially hundreds of people coming down to the courthouse. And from those hundreds of people, 12 individuals are chosen to sit on the jury. And that can sometimes be difficult because serving on a jury is an obligation, it's a privilege, but it can also be sort of an onerous experience.
Can you elaborate on that last point on some of the challenges and the realities that might come with it?
Yeah, so across Canada, we'll start by saying that we want our juries to be representative of the communities. So we want them to be diverse. We want them filled with people of different genders, different backgrounds, different races, different religions. We want them to be a truly representative jury. But that can be really difficult because of some of the systemic biases built into the process. Across Canada, we all compensate our jurors very poorly. And so that means if you are someone who is a working class individual, someone that doesn't come from privilege, someone who works night, shift work, someone who is living paycheck to paycheck, an ordinary person, it can be very hard to sit on a jury. If you're someone who's a single mom or a single dad or doesn't have family or community support to help look after your kids or help take care of your obligations, it might prevent you from sitting on a jury. And the names where we get those potential jurors from, the way that we fill the names, we fill that list, can also be met with some systemic and some bias because it can be drawn from tax rolls or from other ways that may exclude a certain number of people. So our juries generally are comprised of those privileged enough to be able to sit on long trials, and that makes them not really representative of our communities.
This is also, of course, a very high-profile case. How challenging from that perspective might the next several weeks be for the jurors?
Yeah, the other thing we don't do very well is look after our juries after trials. A lot of times what we see in court is very different from what we would experience in our day-to-day lives. There can be, troubling pictures, troubling images, troubling evidence. The topic matter is heavy and serious and, can be trauma-inducing. As defense lawyers, we know this really well because we don't have, pensions and paid leave and things like that. And so we sort of get a sense of what these jurors are feeling because after a jury can experience and deliberate not only this monumental choice about guilt or innocence, but all of the disturbing evidence that goes into that, it can be quite an emotionally traumatic experience. And that can prevent some people from sitting on the jury too, because we just don't have mechanisms and we haven't prioritized making sure that our juries are healthy during the course of the trial and after the trial.
So the follow-through support is something you're saying that could be improved in this country. And what are the realities about, what if you do sit as a juror, you're not allowed to talk about the case, right? Like usually when somebody's working through something, you talk about it. But one of the things is you can't talk about it.
That's right. And this is an important sort of protection that we have. We need to make sure that jurors aren't influenced by anything, that they don't predetermine a decision, that they don't, come to conclusions before they've heard all of the evidence and all of the arguments, because a jury's verdict is a guilty or not guilty verdict. We don't have reasons. So we can't go behind that verdict. So we have to make sure that, we put every protection in place to make sure that it's a fair and just verdict. But yeah, that means they can't talk to their families. They sometimes, couldn't talk to a counselor. They can't talk to each other about it. So it can be a very isolating experience as well. And especially in a trial like this one, it's going to be a lengthy trial that spans a number of weeks. It can leave jurors feeling isolated, alone. And, that in itself can lead to, I think, some decisions that may not be correct.
There was a lot of criticism of jury selection following the trial of Gerald Stanley. That's the Saskatchewan man who was acquitted in the killing of Colton Bushy. Can you remind us of what some of that criticism was?
Yeah, so the criticism there is that the defense in that case used their peremptory challenges. These are challenges you can get rid of a juror for no reason at all. You don't have to give a reason, just something that you don't like about them for some reason. And, in each trial, defense and Crown used to have a certain number of these challenges. And the allegation was that the defense in that case was using them to racially skew the jury because the deceased, the victim in that case, was from an Indigenous background. I think unfounded criticisms, but that led to legislative changes that eliminated these peremptory challenges. And so it really restricted the lawyer's abilities to make sure that the jury was diverse, to make sure that we did have people of diverse backgrounds. And so, one can say that that legislation that, was moved to correct a perceived problem, certainly changed how we choose juries and maybe not for the better.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So one of the things that we want is juries that represent our community, and we know that accused people are disproportionately from racialized backgrounds, from marginalized backgrounds, and it's hard to get juries that are racially diverse and diverse in terms of socioeconomic backgrounds. They tend to be white, privileged, middle class, in Ottawa, where I am, government workers who get paid time off and accommodations to be on a jury. And so what defense counsel routinely did was if I was representing a racialized man and I saw that we had selected half the jury and they were all white individuals, my client would be looking at that saying, that doesn't reflect me. The next 4 jurors in line may also be white before there was a racialized juror following that. And I could use my peremptory challenges to excuse those 4 white jurors to make sure that we had a chance to select that racialized juror. We can't do that anymore, and we're left on some, very vague questions and some questioning by some limited questioning by the judge to make sure that our jury is going to be fair, impartial, and isn't going to engage in any prejudicial reasoning and be as diverse as possible.
What is something, just in closing here, what is something that you think still needs to change in the way that we select juries in Canada?
I think that we need to make sure that we eliminate all prejudice and bias from our juries. We need to make sure that decisions are based on the evidence and not based on extrinsic and irrelevant factors. And the tools that we have to make sure that our juries are biased, aren't racist, for example, is to, ask the juror basically, are you racist? And the juror will say yes or no. That's probably not good enough. And we need to come up with a better way. Maybe not the system we see in the US where there's, days of in-depth questioning and combing through social media, but there simply needs to be better ways to make sure that our juries evaluate cases based on evidence and get it right the first time, because it's a serious issue for everyone involved.
Thank you very much for your time via Zoom today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
That's Michael Spratt. He's a criminal law specialist and a partner at the criminal law firm AGP Law in Ottawa. So the 28-day trial, pardon me, I just lost my screen for a moment. The 28-day jury trial for alleged serial killer Jeremy Skibicki is planned to begin on April 29th. The allegations against Skibicki have not been proven in court. And as we have been saying in the news, mentioning in the news today, the jury selection is happening today. It is 3 minutes now to 8 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and with more on this story and others, Heather Wells has been coming to us with the news this morning, and she's here now with developing stories and headlines.
Good morning. Well, the province is investigating a school board in Western Manitoba over comments made by a trustee at a meeting earlier this week. Paul Coffey at Mountain View School Division is accused of sharing hateful opinions and misinformation about inclusion policies and residential schools. And a 17-year-old with autism disorder says he has found purpose and passion in the kitchen as part of Marymount's Student Work Education Experience program. We're going to hear about Drew Blaine's story in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In Winnipeg, it is 7 degrees. And just taking a quick look around the province to this hour, there's a lot of 7-degree spots. We have Victoria Beach, Wasaga Wyoming, all at 7 degrees. The warm spot right now is Dauphin at 14 degrees. The cold spot's Tuduli Lake at minus 13 degrees. So quite a span. In Brandon, it is also 7 degrees right now. Our Winnipeg daytime high today is going to be 22, warmest day of the week. Sunny to start. You can see that out there now. The sun's just blaring in the windows here at our studio at Portage and Spence. And later, that might change a little. We have a few clouds that are going to move in, and it's going to be windy. Winds will be gusting 40 to 60 this morning, and they'll pick up around noontime. In the morning commute, it's been pretty good so far. 788-3093 if you want to reach us, and stay right here, because coming up we have World Report, the latest in national and international news, and then after 8, how are you going to get some Z's during the late playoff games if you are a Winnipeg Jets fan or a hockey fan overall? We'll talk about it. Stay with us.
On Q.
I'm Macy Rose sitting in for Tom Power. Saturday Night Live legend Maya Rudolph will tell you about the second season of her series Loot, why she's so interested in the lives of the mega rich, and she'll look back on some of her biggest comedy moments.
Wilson Phillips, we listened to Hold On probably 10,000 times when I got my driver's license.
Q, this morning at 10, 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
It is a lot of work to win a seat on City Council, but a lot of municipal elected officials are quitting once they get the job, saying they're facing too much abuse from colleagues and the public. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Something big is coming to Canada's automotive industry, and for days we have had hints it is coming from Honda in the form of a new electric vehicle plant. We will finally learn the full details later this morning. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Ontario Premier Doug Ford will be there for the announcement, and Janice McGregor will be following closely from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, when we talk about a new deal with Honda, how big is big?
One of the reasons you're going to hear politicians reaching for all the superlatives today, Marcia, is that this isn't just about one facility. Not only is Honda revealing a major expansion of its assembly plant in Alliston, but it's also going to manufacture its electric vehicle batteries in Canada and invest in the components for those batteries. And that's why when it all adds up and the bottom line's revealed, we're expecting this to be the biggest play yet in Canada. Ultimately, this Honda investment will create jobs in multiple locations. We know they're all in Ontario. Quebec's minister revealed earlier this week his government had been outbid, and it took incentives from both the federal and provincial governments to land it. And that's the second big number we've yet to nail down. Politicians a bit cagey when previous EV deals were announced, not always fully transparent about everything taxpayers had to kick in, citing corporate competitiveness concerns. But unlike the ongoing production subsidies offered to land Canada's first two battery plants in Windsor and St. Thomas, the sweetener for Honda this time is taking the form of specially designed tax credits. Ontario's Economic Development Minister Vic Fedeli explained they're not simply handing over a giant novelty check for $1 billion.
No money is distributed to any company until they've met their hiring goals and their construction goals. So if they haven't started, there's no money issued whatsoever.
But what about the return on this investment for taxpayers? Not everyone's convinced, Janice.
It takes a lot of money to compete globally, and we've seen skepticism from union leaders in Windsor, for example, when foreign workers from the Korean parent company were brought in there to do jobs they believed had been promised to Canadians. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said yesterday, if we're shelling out big for Honda, there'd better be strings attached.
Public dollars should be tied to jobs and investments that benefit Canadians. It should not be that we just give a blank check to a company and say, we hope that you're going to hire Canadians. We hope that this is going to be beneficial.
Federal Conservatives, too, have amplified this kind of skepticism about these deals, a departure from their provincial cousins at Queen's Park, where Doug Ford's government is all in.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. In New York, we love Trump! We love Trump! Donald Trump is greeted by a crowd of supporters outside a Manhattan courthouse. Trump arrived early this morning to attend his ongoing hush money trial. His legal team has another big day. Some of them will be in Washington, D.C. at the Supreme Court for a significant trial. Richard Madden is covering the story for us. And Richard, tell us more about the Supreme Court case.
Yeah, this is perhaps the most consequential one because just a few hours from now, the Supreme Court will begin oral arguments on Donald Trump's claims that he's immune from criminal charges while he was president. This is an appeal connected to his federal charges of trying to overturn the 2020 election in his final days in office. Now, Trump is the only former president to ever be charged with a crime, but he's long argued all presidents must be shielded from prosecution. Special counsel Jack Smith has argued no one is above the law, including the president, and federal lawyers will try to persuade the judges, 3 who were appointed by Trump himself, that Trump wasn't acting as president when he tried to overturn Joe Biden's victory on January 6th. So this all sets up another unprecedented moment for the High Court. Here is University of Pennsylvania law professor Kate Shaw.
The fact that they took the case, to my mind, sends a signal that they are at least considering seriously this argument. And so there is at least a non-zero chance that some number of justices might sign on to this, I think, quite extraordinary argument that Trump is making.
So another big factor is the timing of this ruling. The longer the court takes could affect the start date of the trial and whether it would happen before or after November's election.
So what are the implications of a court ruling?
Yeah, well, Trump will likely argue if the trial begins before the election, during the campaign, it would be election interference. Prosecutors would likely argue for a speedier trial. But if Trump wins, that basically would end this whole case. The January 6th charge is essentially tossed out. But if he loses, the case continues. So the stakes are high and their decision consequential.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Indigenous Services Canada is struggling to respond to requests to help First Nations children. New data obtained by CBC News shows the federal department is responding to about a third of cases on time. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, critics say those delays put children's lives at risk.
To see such low levels of compliance for the most needy kids is really, really concerning.
Every minute, a request to help First Nations children sits idle. Advocate Cindy Blackstock says there are consequences.
It can be as serious as life and death.
Under a federal program known as Jordan's Principle, Indigenous Services Canada covers a wide range of health, social, and education needs for First Nations children. The department is supposed to process urgent requests within 12 hours and non-urgent requests within 2 days. But new data obtained by CBC News shows that's only happening about a third of the time, and delays are getting worse.
There's real issues here in terms of treating Indigenous children the way we expect any child in this country to be treated.
New Democrat MP Charlie Angus says the numbers send a message.
If you're an Indigenous child that needs medical care, you're on your own.
Indigenous Services Canada declined CBC's request for an interview. But in a statement, the department says it's hiring more staff to reduce delays and exploring new technology to manage the sheer volume of requests. Since 2018, the department says demand has exploded from just under 16,000 cases to more than 100,000. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Jury selection starts today for the trial of a Winnipeg man accused of killing 4 women. The partial remains of Rebecca Contois were found in a garbage bin and at a city-run landfill in 2022. Police say they believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are at a different landfill outside Winnipeg. A 4th woman has not been found. Indigenous leaders have named her Buffalo Woman. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. His trial is scheduled to start next week. A Toronto area woman has just learned she may not be Canadian. She has been in the country nearly her entire life. As Olivia Bowden reports, she got a letter from Immigration Canada that is taking months to sort out.
I was totally shocked.
Ariel Townsend says she never thought to question her citizenship. She was just a few months old when she came to Canada from Jamaica. But everything changed for the 32-year-old last September, when a letter from Immigration Canada said her citizenship could be cancelled.
I thought that there would be roadblocks to me becoming who I wanted to be in this country and making myself successful, but I never thought that that roadblock would be literally revoking my citizenship.
Townsend was born in Jamaica in the 90s. Her mother says she had just become a Canadian a few months before the birth, but the government now says its records show her mother was not a Canadian until after. Daniel Kingwell is a lawyer for Townsend.
We're asking the government to recognize if a mistake was made, it wasn't her fault, it wasn't her mother's fault. She should either be able to retain her citizenship or they should give her citizenship.
Kingwell says they filed the proper documents with the government 5 months ago and have not heard back. In the meantime, Townsend cannot leave the country until this is resolved. She says she feels helpless.
I'm the one responsible for fixing the problem that I did not even create for myself. I don't know how they expect me to prove something that I have no ability to prove.
Immigration Canada told CBC they do not comment on individual cases due to privacy legislation. Olivia Bowden, CBC News, Toronto.
What happens when you combine this
with 10 fresh flavors every day? Everyone can have their way. Yeah! You've always got time for Timbits.
With this?
Welcome to the Rock. If you come from away, you probably understand about
A Tim Hortons musical, of course. No, for real, it is happening. To mark its 60th anniversary, the donut chain is launching a musical this summer in Toronto. It is called The Last Timbit, and it is based on a bad snowstorm back in 2010. It was so bad, drivers near Sarnia that year had to wait out the weather at a local Tim Hortons.
this morning and they were quite pleased until I told them we'd have
That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Are you thinking about what number your favorite donut is going to sound like? Like, what's the song about the crawler going to be like? Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. On 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Thank you for joining us this morning. It is beautiful, glistening sunshine outside. That's what we've got this morning. So it is going to be one of the warmest days of the week. Abby with your forecast in a moment. Well, this half hour on the program, we're going to hear more of your entries into our contest to win tickets to the Winnipeg Comedy Festival, which is coming up right around the corner here now. So stay tuned. You've been phoning in and calling in your mom jokes, giving dad jokes a break for the time being. Also, this half hour on the show, you might be staying up late to watch hockey, especially tomorrow night. Game starts at 9 o'clock with playoffs in full swing for the Winnipeg Jets. But how do you get a good night's rest after you stay up for the late game and you're buzzing with excitement? We'll have a bit of a chat about it. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells and switch gears here to find out what is developing in the news today. Good morning.
Good morning. A mother in Mountain View School Division is calling on a school board trustee to step down over comments he made at a school board meeting on Monday. Paul Coffey is accused of sharing hateful opinions and misinformation about inclusion policies and residential schools. Jury selection starts today for the trial of a Winnipeg man accused of killing 4 women. The partial remains of Rebecca Contois were found in a garbage bin and at a city-run landfill in 2022. Police say they believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are at a different landfill just outside the city. And a 4th woman has not been found. Indigenous leaders have named her Buffalo Woman. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty. We'll hear more in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's get to Abby now with that forecast. Abby.
I wanted to sing Here Comes the Sun, but no, I'm not going to sing that song. I'm just going to go.
Why?
It's sunny outside. I know. I'm like, it's in my head. No, I'm not going to sing. No. Except you want me to sing the heavy metal version of it.
There's a heavy metal version of Here Comes the Sun?
I'm just going to do it in my head. Like,
Wow, you've got the heavy metal growl down, man.
Sunny outside. We're at 9 degrees. The mercury is climbing in the downtown Winnipeg. We began, with cloudy conditions, like clear conditions, and now it's sunny outside. A few clouds would move in the afternoon period, and it's going to be windy, so put that into consideration as you plan your day. We're heading to a high of 22 today. Brandon is at 9. It's sunny out there, heading to 22. Thompson is at 0, heading to 12, and mainly cloudy, a chance of showers. Churchill is at -12, mostly cloudy. Around 0 is a high for today. Dauphin at 15, at sunny. Gimli is at 6 degrees, mainly sunny, heading to a high of 19. Steinbach at 9, Morris at 7.
Here
comes the sun.
All right, Corey Funk, what's up in the commute?
I want Abby to join my Screamo band. I think we do pretty well. Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty quiet out there overall. But if you do see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
So don't be alarmed by the alarm. We are playing it because at its best, the sound of an alarm like that going off early in the morning can be grating. But when you've had a late night or you just haven't slept well, it can be enough to drive you up the wall. NHL playoffs are in full swing now. And with the late games and even later whiteout parties, some Jets fans might find that they're not getting enough sleep at the end of the day. So we've have on Zoom with us this morning Dr. Maggie Penfold, a clinical psychologist and a Jets fan. She says if you're waking up the day after a game and you're feeling groggy, you are not alone. But there are things that we can all do to get a better night's sleep. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is a fun conversation as long as the Jets are winning, right? So
yes.
We'll see about tomorrow night. What's your experience been since you're a fan yourself? What's your experience trying to get to sleep after watching a game?
Yeah, it can be a bit challenging to wind down. And I think this is a problem that not everybody necessarily has. Like I know my partner, no problem. Exciting game, lots of excitement, hitting the bed right away, no problem. Me, I need a bit of time to come down, which does delay bedtime a little bit further, even if you're already having a later bedtime. And I think that's still okay. Like, I think still letting yourself go through your, bedtime routine, your nighttime routine, even if it's a more simplified version, can just really help you get ready for sleep onset. And we're okay to tolerate some sleep deprivation. We already do this for lots of special occasions and life events. We come out the other side just fine.
What would you say to someone who's trying to look for tips to help the kids? If the kids have stayed up to watch a late game and you've allowed them that, but then you also want to make sure that they can be a little bit less tired the next day. Is there advice there?
Yeah, I think, similar to what I might suggest for adults who have things on the next day, again, just really letting yourself go through your evening, your nighttime routine, maybe a more pared down version of it, just to really get the conditions for sleep to be present, to allow you to have a good sleep for the time you will have. So it becomes less about trying to squeeze in somehow all of the sleep you need in terms of time, but really emphasizing the quality of the sleep you will get and just really trying to set the conditions for that once the excitement dies down.
What if you get home from a game? If you've gone to a game, maybe you're the whiteout party, that's when stuff gets really late. And then maybe you're sort of have, anxiety. If you're a huge sports fan, maybe you're thinking about the game. Or maybe you just sort of have anxiety now because you're doing just what you alluded to there. You're kind of counting the hours like, wow, it's already so late. And then you look at the clock with one eye. We've all been there. Is there a way to sort of calm that anxiety once you are already in bed?
Yeah, I think, again, just really reminding yourself, like, this probably isn't going to be the first time that you've had a bit of sleep loss. Really just noticing, it can be pretty anxiety provoking to think about what the next day might be like with less sleep, but just really coming back to reminding yourself that, right now this is happening because you're participating in something that's bigger than you. You know, it's a big thing for the community. It's a big thing for Jets fans. There's lots of good energy, lots of excitement. You know, we don't get to do this a lot, you know, and I think just really decatastrophizing thoughts about sleep and what the consequences of not getting enough sleep are. We can tolerate it. We really can. It's when it becomes night after night after night after night is when we see some problems start to stack up.
I always think I like what you're saying. It's like reminding ourselves it's a choice we've made. We've made a choice, right, for this special time. Can you share some examples of non-stimulating activities people might think about, you know, before bed? If they, as you said, you don't want to do maybe your full routine and take all the time, but maybe a couple things that might be good.
Yeah, so I think definitely, you know, just making sure your lights are turned down, you know, limiting screen exposure if you can help it. You know, maybe just if watching TV is something that helps you wind down, making sure that it's something that, you know, is not too stimulating, something you can easily step away from when a wave of sleepiness does come on. You know, same thing with reading. A lot of people find reading as a helpful way to wind down, and just making sure that whatever it is you're reading is something that you can put down when you do notice a wave of sleepiness coming over you.
What advice would you give to someone who plans on catching up on missed sleep later in the week? Does that work, patching it together?
Yeah, you know, I wish it did. I really wish it did. You know, each night our brain, you know, completes critical functions that are, you know, helpful for our cognitive functioning, our restorative functionings in our body. These need to happen every single night. And like I said before, you know, we can tolerate some sleep loss here and there. It's not catastrophic. But this idea that we can somehow stack it all in the weekend or make up for it, I mean, it might feel really good in the moment to just stay in your cozy bed and get some extra sleep. But there are diminishing returns on longer blocks of sleep. Like once the critical functions have happened, I mean, there's not much to really gain. I mean, of course, exceptions are if you are ill or, you know, recovering from something like that, then maybe it does make sense to sleep more. But under usual circumstances, trying to stack your sleep into the weekend just doesn't quite work.
If someone is getting less sleep, is there anything that they can do to be less tired the next day? Like, should you be loading up on all your caffeine then to get through the day? Or, I don't know, sucking on ice cubes to maybe have that shock of cold? Or does anything work, actually?
Well, okay, yeah, so like something like ice cubes, like anything that might kind of, you know, try to like stimulate you, it might work short term. You know, but really like it's just sort of accepting, you know, I might be a little bit tired. I made this trade-off, and, you know, looking at ways to lighten your load if you can.
How do we
when
know
it comes to caffeine?
Yeah, caffeine, please.
Yeah, we like it. You know, it tastes good. I'm definitely a caffeine addict myself. But yeah, loading up on more often goes against, you know, what our intention actually is. Like it might feel good in the moment because you're awake and you're alert, but later on it might catch up to you when it is time for you to eventually go to sleep again.
And just before you go this morning, how do you know if you might have to give it up? I mean, like actually throw in the white towel and say, I can't stay up because this is actually impacting me. I need more sleep. I'll have to look at the score in the morning. What are some signs that maybe you've gone too far and you're a bit sleep deprived now?
Yeah, well, you know, and I also just really want to acknowledge, like earlier on in the program, you had some audio from Jim Agapito, who was interviewing people, and they just had these beautiful examples of how people are making these judgment calls on a case-by-case basis, game-by-game basis, I should say, about, you know, whether it makes sense for them to even try to stay up and deal with that sleep loss. You know, lots of different factors to consider, just really great examples of that. But I guess if we're looking at, you know, I've been doing this for a while, I'm starting to feel it. It might be looking at, you know, are you starting to notice, you know, increased irritability, you know, difficulty staying awake, you know, like, you know, excessive daytime sleepiness, you know, are you noticing some of those things showing up? Maybe a lower frustration threshold. I know for some people we get a bit clumsy if we're feeling a bit sleepy, you know, just kind of noticing that. And then, you know, again, maybe evaluating, you know, is it workable for me to stay up for this game as well? You know, or do I maybe need to just let myself kind of wait until the next day to find out.
Well, I'm grateful as a person that doesn't work on Saturdays, I'm grateful that the Jets game tomorrow night that starts at 9 is at least on a Friday night. So I have plans to stay up.
Go Jets, go!
Yeah, enjoy it. Thank you so much for the conversation this morning. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Marcy. My pleasure.
That's Dr. Maggie Penfold, a clinical psychologist with Wolseley Wellness.
There are many people who bring success, innovation, accomplishment, and charity to our community. We'd like you to help us meet some of the best. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Manitobans under 40 making a difference. Help us discover the inspiring people in our province by nominating a shining star in your community today. For details, visit cbc.ca/future40mb.
It is 8:23 a.m. It's in Winnipeg, a high of 22 that we're expecting today. And just looking around the province to this hour, the cold spot still to Dooley Lake at -13. The warm spot is now Dauphin at 15 degrees already this morning. Wow. Winnipeg, we're sitting at 9 degrees in the downtown with lots of sunshine. Well, I want to mention something coming up on Saturday. And tomorrow, actually, we're going to be highlighting one of the people that's going to be highlighted at this event that I am having the privilege of emceeing on Saturday. So there's an annual fundraising gala dinner, and this is for the Canadian Muslim Women's Institute here. And so one of the there's a whole bunch of things going on through the evening because the theme this year is to embrace people's stories and journeys. So embracing our story is sort of the whole theme of the evening Saturday night. And if you want to read more about it, you can go to the pages of the Canadian Muslim Women's Institute. That is their pages online or on their Facebook page. But they're going to be having dancers and poets and comedians and a keynote speaker sharing her life's journey here and all the places she went through in her life and lived in the world before she landed here in Manitoba. So it's really going to be a beautiful event, but a huge nod to the Institute. They've been were founded in 2006, and they have done so much critical work in the community and over their 2 decades in existence. And they continue to do that work. I mean, if you go to their website, you're going to read things about how they empower individuals. They bring families together. Socially, they help people. Financially, sometimes they are able to help people. And so all kinds of different things go on. And I know there's a lot of people that are part of the organization and volunteer their time. So if you want to read more about what's happening Saturday night, if you can still join us, please go to their website and grab a ticket and come on out and join us. And if not, you can read more about the work they do. So that's the Canadian Muslim Women's Institute gala dinner event that's coming up on Saturday night. It is 8:25 right now. Well, of course, the other thing coming up is the Comedy Festival, and we have a contest running. We're asking you to tell us a mum joke.
Hi, I have a really good mum math joke for you because I'm a math teacher. What do you call when you cross a dog and a calculator? A friend you can count on. Have a good day.
Thank you. You are entered to win tickets to the Comedy Festival, but not only that. You will be going to a recording of The Debaters. You might hear that show on CBC here. It's so funny. And if you've never been to a live recording of The Debaters, they always they have multiple debates that you get to go to, so it's awesome. But you also, if you win our contest, are going to be on stage delivering your joke. So could it be you? Win at cbc.ca. Win at cbc.ca is how you can enter. Or 788-3205 and leave a joke on the listener line, just like that one you just heard. Here's one that came in on email. Angie Conrad wrote in. She said, I want to win tickets to the Comedy Festival. She says, what does a clock do when it's hungry? It goes back 4 seconds. Get it? Ha ha! You might have to see it in print, right? FOR. It goes back for seconds, second helpings, but actually FOUR, the number 4. I can't believe I just explained that. That's why I'm not one of the headliners at the Comedy Festival. But you might be able to tell your own joke on stage at the festival. 8:26 a.m. I did get one laugh, at least. Janet Stewart's in studio. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I so rudely talked over you. I'm so sorry.
I didn't hear you. Your mic was off. We can hear you now, though. How are you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear the birds?
Good. I can hear the birds.
They're beautiful.
Yeah. So first I'm going to explain why you're here. Janet comes in every day now, which is glorious, because we love seeing you, but also because you want to talk about what's happening on Radio Noon in your call-in portion of the show, the call-in conversation between 12:30 and 1. And that is why we are hearing the birds today.
Oh, we want to know if you're hearing the birds. Are you hearing the birds? What signs of spring are you seeing and recognizing? And do you wonder what's happening? Is there something different this year? Doug Collicott, you know him so well. Doug Collicott is joining us today. He's a former biologist, and he often is here on Information Radio. Well, he's going to join us today at 12:30 to answer questions and just chat about spring and what's different this year. There are some, spring comes to Manitoba at different times every year, and we're seeing some early signs this year of movement and things coming to life. So let's talk about that. I mean, it's so fun to see people's photos and to talk about the critters.
Some of my favorite interviews are with people that are really into nature and birds. I love birds, but I know nothing about them. I watch them all the time. I'm trying to learn a bit more. But I love when you hear about people that know the specific feeders to put out and what birds are going to come out at what time. And on Facebook, I might call in today because all over Facebook, there's these people are saying, it's reminders, but people are saying don't rake too early because the pollinators are hanging out in all that debris if you have leaves and mulch and, the natural stuff. And so I was sort of like, I'm itching to rake because Abby said it's going to rain. So I'm thinking today would be a good raking day and then it's going to rain, but maybe we should wait because of nature.
And that's a whole discussion. Yeah. I was thinking that would make a great call in too. Maybe we'll talk about that today because what do you do? Yeah. It is better to leave them. It's better to leave
For
your
how
leaves.
long though? When can I get out there?
Well, I know, there's some people who talk about no mow May, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
That's a whole next month.
So today you can call in between 12:30 and 1 to the live lines, but we always like to remind you at this point in our show where you can leave a message for Janet for the call-in conversation. And then what happens is if you're out and about and you're busy, Janet will put that call on or she'll reflect your question and ask the question, and then you're part of the conversation. Ta-da.
Ta-da. And it's 204-788-3797 if you'd like to do that.
All right, Janet, we'll have a good conversation today.
We will. Can we hear the birds again?
We can hear the birds again. Yeah, Abby's always got the birds on cue somewhere. There they are.
It's so nice.
It is so nice, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
788-3797. You can leave a message for the call-in conversation about nature today. Well, the morning commute has sure been cooperating with us here. It is 788-3093. I know it's late in the show, but if you do need to reach us, you can give us a call on that line, and Corey will be here to pick it up. 788-3093. And also one more reminder, I know that we're loading up with different things that we're mentioning, but it's a busy time of year as spring awakens us all. And this one I'm excited about because it's back. Future 40 is back. CBC Manitoba's Future 40. And we just opened nominations this week. They close end of next week, so there's only a couple weeks to get it in. So if you know someone who should be nominated, we are looking to highlight their stories, leaders, the success stories, the change makers, the volunteers under the age of 40 in the province. Nominate someone or nominate yourself. You can go online and check it out, cbc.ca/future40MB. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. Mostly sunny. That breeze is starting to pick up from the south now, gusting to 37. We are at 9 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. It's going to be windy and 22 this afternoon. A mother in Mountain View School Division is calling on a school board trustee to step down over comments he made at a board meeting on Monday. Paul Coffey is accused of sharing hateful opinions and misinformation about inclusion policies and residential schools. In a presentation, he expressed doubts over the number of Indigenous people who attended those schools. Jerry Ann Thompson is an Indigenous mother whose 2 children are in the Parkland Area Division.
It worries me because I am very active in my daughter's school right now, and I see the progress that's being made. They're more proud of their culture, their history, because it's more accepted in the schools now.
Thompson says she wants Coffey to resign. CBC News has reached out to Coffey for comment but has not heard back. Meanwhile, a group called the Parkland Human Rights Alliance has sent a letter to Manitoba's education minister asking him to do whatever he can to remove Coffey from the school board. Education Minister Nello Altomare says the province is launching a governance review of the board.
We're concerned about the presentation, and we're also concerned that the presentation was even allowed to proceed at the board meeting.
Altomare says once a review is completed, his department will then decide what to do. He says schools have to be inclusive, safe spaces, and they have to continue doing the important work of reconciliation. Jury selection is set to begin today in a Winnipeg courtroom in the case of an alleged serial killer. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 women in 2022. The partial remains of Rebecca Contois were recovered from a garbage bin and the Brady Road landfill. Police believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are in a different landfill just north of Winnipeg. The location of the 4th victim, known as Buffalo Woman, is unknown. After jury selection, Skibicki's trial is scheduled to start next Monday and continue to June. Some breaking news this morning. New York's highest court has just overturned Harvey Weinstein's 2020 rape conviction. The state appeals court found the judge was prejudiced against the former Hollywood producer, and he improperly allowed women to testify about the allegations that were not part of the case. The court has now ordered a new trial, but Harvey Weinstein will remain in prison. In 2022, he was convicted of another rape in Los Angeles and sentenced to 16 years behind bars. Emergency crews are battling a significant fire in the BC interior that has closed a highway and prompted a tactical evacuation. The BC Wildfire Service says the out-of-control wildfire is burning in the Peace River Regional District and the district of Chetwynd. It is one of 160 wildfires currently burning in BC and Alberta, signifying an early and alarming start to this year's wildfire season. And a 17-year-old with autism disorder says he has found purpose and passion in the kitchen as part of Marymount's Student Work Education Experience program. Marymount is a youth and family social services organization. Drew Blaine is learning all the skills required to be a chef.
It's like the cutting and putting stuff out, organizing. It's really a lot more fun if you actually have fun with it. I personally just really like the feeling of using the knife.
Oh, you should see my knife work. It's not so great. Blaine balances schoolwork with 2 weekly morning shifts in the kitchen. And with the help of his teachers and Marymount Scholarship, he has been accepted in Red River College's Indigenous Culinary course. His dream is to become a chef and maybe own a restaurant one day. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
It is 8:34. Thank you very much, Heather Wells. And let's have a look at what's happening in the commute this morning with Corey. It's been. Are you still pitching a no-hitter, so to speak? Have you had no calls?
Yeah, pretty much pitching a no-hitter today. We are totally blank across the board, which is
Right.
okay with me. That makes for a good morning. Happy camper over here.
Right. Well, that's what they say about ball games that are no-hitters too, right? That they're actually they're some of the best ball games.
Exactly.
So it's been a good morning commute out there,
Sure
and
thing.
why not? It's beautiful out. Abby, last look at the day.
Sunny across board except for the northern part of the province, seeing cloudy conditions. Thompson will see some showers, and Churchill will be getting to a high of 0. Down in the south, it's going to be highs of ranging from 22s and 23. And Winnipeg, we're heading for a high of 22. But be careful, there's wind.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yep. I clearly need more caffeine this morning. There's been so many pauses. I left you completely hanging. What was that, just after
Well, that's
8?
because you don't know what Screamo was,
We
apparently.
were talking about bands, and Abby was doing his guttural scream. Yeah, Abby's sound for his metal music. But what did you say? A screamo band?
Yeah, so if someone wants to educate Marcy on what Screamo is, call our listener line.
Well, tell me now.
It's like a genre of music, like emo was a thing.
Yeah.
Emo, you know emo
I know what
music.
that is, yeah.
And Screamo, you had to screaming to your emo music.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you actually have a screamo band, or was that you being funny and I left
that
you
was me
completely?
being funny. I don't
and I
have a screamo
completely
band.
left
I
you
mean,
hanging.
if anyone's looking for a singer, I'd join.
Not our finest moment of radio, kids. All right, now I'm educated. I like it.
There you
Screamo
go.
band.
Mhm.
Screamo, emo, all the things. Thank you very much. Hopefully you're not screamoing at your radio. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa on behalf of our whole team. Brad Lillies, Corey Funk, Abby Adeyemi, Heather Wells, and Megan Ketcherson, and Aaron Broman in our news center this morning, as well as our hardworking team of associate producers that work in our current affairs unit and book the guests, call the guests, convince you somehow to come on and talk to us. And we're all so grateful. We are here for you. Thanks to our leaders in unit, Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez. Take care, be well, everybody. The Current's next.